No.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Good morning to you and welcome to Friday's OTB AM. Adrian here, Shane over there.
Morning, folks. Morning, Adrian and Colm. How are things?
Colm over there.
Hi Adrian, hi Shane, great shirt Shane.
Thank you, Colm. Yes.
Shirt.
Is that the third or fourth compliment?
That's the fourth compliment we've got this morning.
That'll be fifth, wouldn't it?
None from Adrian.
No, I suspect that you won't be getting any more. I won't be certainly adding to it. But
Due comments.
Not something I'd wear myself, Shane, but listen, fair play to you. It's out there. We've put it out there now. Good morning to you, wherever it is you're at. Delighted to have you along this Friday morning. We've loads coming your way between now and 10 this morning. We've plenty to get our teeth into. We'll inevitably end up discussing the event of the week, and we'll have Maurice Deegan on a little bit later on to give the refs perspective and all of that. Some developments overnight in that the slight indicators that were coming from Declan Bogue earlier in the week that Crokes may indeed launch an objection to the result from Glen seems to be coming a bit more hardline now, because it's reported across most of the back pages this morning that looks as if that's what will happen, and they'll make the case that, I presume they'll make the case that the result should stand, because the officials should have sorted it out.
Yeah. I just hope now, I hope the game is played. I hope the replay is actually played. Like, I don't want it to get to a stage where the replay is ordered and then one or both or either team decides not going to play it.
Is there a possibility Glenn just say, we don't want to, thanks for adjudicating over that, we don't actually want to play the game?
I think they won't want to have been left wondering what if over in All Ireland. As Damien Cassidy said during the week, this could be once in a lifetime. Look, Glen could be back in the next 3 or 4 All Ireland finals. They could. But
what do you mean, like, what if?
Well, you don't want to look back in 10, 15 years, 20 years or more at your career and say, do you know what? I'm angry about that now. We should have played that game. We should have...
angry in that, like, we definitely would have got a goal.
No, not necessarily that. Like, the chances of a goal happening at that last 15 seconds were slim, regardless of whether it was 15 or 16. But that's not the point.
8. But anyway, go on. Yeah.
But yeah, it's not. But it's not the point. However, for some period of that game, Kilmacud had more players than Glen. So
that's the rule. That's the rule, and I agree with that. That's the rule. And then after that, there's the spirit of the rule. I don't think there's any. I'm sure Glen would like to have another go at it and to retake the 45, and of course if that had just happened at the time, then that would have been amazing, but that's not the position we're in. But I'd be struggling to think that there's too many of them sitting back going, if we could just do that again with 15 players, we definitely would have got that goal.
No, I don't think
it's not like it isn't like a Louth Meath situation in that case where it's like, if he hadn't have just dived over the line with the ball, then we actually would have won the game.
Yeah.
It can't be as clear cut as that for them. There's a load of grey area, and there's a load of grey area on the Croke side, because I'm sure as they convened across the pubs during the week from the squad and players' point of view, and like, it must be an awful position to be in, because you're trying to celebrate this thing and then you've got this cloud hanging over you, and not without their own input into creating that cloud, of course. But it must be, just on a human level, an awful thing to have been through. And like, by all accounts, I know I was on chatting about it yesterday morning, we don't need to rerun the fun of that, although I do see a couple of comments coming in even this morning that are fairly indicative of the response that I got to it yesterday. Aidan McCabe saying that he'd be giving so this was in response to one of the clips that went up where I'd been talking about people around the club and the impact that it's had and whatever else. He'd be giving it the big one if it was the other way around, says Aidan McCabe. Thanks, Aidan. Fair play. That's good to know my innermost reactions to a hypothetical situation. Fair play. And then Oisín, good morning to you. Oisín saying Adrian spent most of his time saying that context is important. It's entirely irrelevant. Unstructured defensive echo chamber stuff. That's right, Oisín. Context is absolutely not important. In my view, context is totally important, and I do think that, like, when it comes to it, if Crokes are to go back to say, listen, the result should stand, and like, if that's the route they choose, that is fair enough.
I don't think that's fair enough.
That's within that, of course it's fair enough.
Crokes to say the result should stand.
It's fair enough for them to go back and say the result should stand because, like, if that's what they're going to do,
I don't think that's within their remit. I don't think there is. I think a lot of heads would say there's no worthy reason for the.
Well, they'll make the case, is what I'm saying. They'll make the case that the referee should never have put down his flag. He should have let the substitution be complete. Sorry, the linesman, and that even at that, once it was spotted, the referee should have gone again. That they can absolutely, at least in part, disassociate themselves from what happened, because like that's the thing. Sure, none of us have a black and white answer as to whose. We don't know. As I sit here, I don't know whose fault it was.
No, but it's a comedy of errors, isn't it? It's a combination of. It's not just the officiating officials on the day. It's not just Kilmacud. But once the game ended, I mean, the Darragh Mullen and the substitute who came on to replace him would have both been aware. We were both on the pitch. I don't
know that.
You'd imagine.
I would assume he hadn't a clue.
Well, maybe Dara had no idea, because Paul Mannion seemed to be having trouble hearing the tannoy and noticing that he had to come off as well, and then he did notice by looking up at the big screen. I think that's what you gauge from looking at the TV. I don't want this to get to a point where Kilmacud turn around now and say we're not going to play the final, because it can't get to a point where they're like it's either we win the trophy or nobody wins the trophy.
Well, you see, you can't present that as a toys out of the pram stuff, because they can legitimately feel, and as I said already, that it's not as if they had no hand, act or part in it. Obviously, there is a part responsibility in that. I don't know to what extent that is, but it's not a toys out of the pram stuff to say that they feel very let down, I'm sure, by the officiating on the day, to the point where they can say that should have been better. If that had been right, then none of this would have cropped up.
There is responsibility. Like if this happened to a junior club in Monaghan, and I was on the management team, I'd be saying afterwards, we messed up too. We did it. We had 16 players in the pitch.
Hypotheticals, we don't know.
I know, but
you don't know, Shane. You haven't a clue. Like
no,
you
but
can't sit here and say that. I know you were saying earlier on about Malachy. You haven't. Nobody knows.
Yeah, but I'm saying that all the blame can't go on officials here. Like some of it has to go on Kilmacud.
I'm not saying all of it. I don't know what the percentage exactly is, but I do think that the ultimate responsibility, if it doesn't currently, common sense dictates that for a myriad of different reasons, it needs to sit firmly on the shoulders of the officials.
Well, I think common sense dictates there has to be a replay. And if John Fogarty's reporting yesterday in the Examiner is to be believed, Kilmacud aren't going that direction. Now, the reporting has changed and seesawed over the last few days on this. We don't know where it's going to end up, and ultimately they have until tomorrow morning to make their move, Kilmacud. And it is like a game of poker. This is not going to be resolved very, very quickly. But I really hope that report is not true, or that they will change their mind if it is true. I genuinely hope Kilmacud don't say in the end of all this, no, we're not playing the replay.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that will be the rationale, and I definitely have sympathy for a lot of that, because the officials really should have done a bit better. As I said, well, of course they should have. It's not even up for debate. But
the extra man on the pitch, I mean, I feel more sorry for Glenn than anyone else.
I know, yeah, but like at that point I feel a bit more sorry that, we're into a bit of the I don't know what the slicing up of the responsibility will be, and ultimately that'll be up to the CCCC to go, well, here's where we think this thing sits, and at the minute it's a bit vague. The other point to make is that Glen have a wedding upcoming on I think it's the 11th of February. There are, after I was on yesterday and I was out and about and around and talking to various people, it seems as if there are an awful lot of holidays booked on the Croke side. I'm sure it's on the Glen side as well, and some of them for key players, and some of them going very far away, and some of them going for an extended period of time, creates a grey area to this. It's not a professional sport. These are not people they've obviously gone ahead and made plans. I know it was touched on yesterday. They've family, they've partners and all that sort of stuff, and
could the GAA suddenly all that's that? Could they pay for Kilmacud and Glen players' holidays being deferred or changed?
I don't know. I think
setting a precedent then,
exactly, they're setting off precedent, and I don't know about that. Like, they'll probably try to come to some sort of an accommodation of a date that would probably be more desirable, that would have less of an impact on that stuff, which may end up meaning that we're back on Paddy's Day.
Yeah,
it could well do.
That's what I was thinking.
But geez, it'd be an awful limbo to be in between now and March.
Isn't it somewhat inevitable as well, if that is the case, if replay is ordered and both teams agree to it, and then as you say, with holidays and with the calendar busy as it is, like the league's starting tomorrow here, we're back into inter-county stuff, and then you go to Paddy's Day, say, that is the time that the replay is played, the momentum is lost of the story, isn't it? And then it goes to show that it's really just this week, this penultimate week in January, where it peaked. And then as time will go on, we'll reflect on this time and think, what was the point in all of that? Unless a rule is actually changed and something comes from it. Because otherwise this was the biggest waste of time.
Well, I think Nicky Brennan hit the nail on the head during the week on that front. I didn't take a great amount of solace from him that was actually going to be the case. He seemed to be suggesting that there'd probably be little chance that people would sit down and actually get to the root of it and sort the bloody thing out. It's totally ridiculous. Just adopt the soccer style substitution rule. You're not going on until you come off. That's it. Like, just let that be the end of it.
But they're probably going to say, well, it's such a rare incident that there's no need to change the ebb and flow of Gaelic football because we're not soccer. I imagine.
If we've just had
a monster
incident in the National Stadium in front of the TV cameras and the showpiece event at the club year, let's assume that it happens in grounds around the country as well.
Yeah, but I think you're forgetting people's mindset and memories, and people move on very fast.
The Nicky Brennan point is an interesting.
And this will be forgotten about in about 3 or 4 weeks' time, especially when inter-county resumes.
Reeling in the years will be good, though.
Yeah,
it'll be
a moment. And I think, like, if you're keeping a diary of how the week's going throughout the year in sport, you'll be like, oh, do you remember that time in January? Because at the moment, this seems to me it's a good discussion point. Everybody's getting involved. WhatsApps are popping off. The live chat's great, and it's like, oh my, what side of the fence do you sit on? It's perfect. Everybody loves this stuff. But if nothing comes from this has been a complete waste of time.
Yeah. I can't understand some of that. So Michael Kennedy says in the comments, can't understand why Shane keeps saying it needs to be a replay. It was 1 minute. It was the fault of the officials. Fine only, and let's move on. That's a ridiculous thing to say. That's a ridiculous comment. You're not. The two teams aren't going to meet up and replay the 15 seconds or replay the 8 seconds or replay the 45. That's just not going to happen.
I don't mind hearing alternatives like that. I think it's pretty creative.
That can't be the case because we cannot. Yes, it's unlikely that Glenn would have scored a goal in that last moment, even if there had been one less. But the point is, Darvel was on the line. He's one of only 2 or 3 players that are there.
I don't think we should overstate. And the other thing is, sorry, I keep repeating this thing. I don't know what impact or otherwise Darren Mullen had, 'cause I've never been involved in a game like that at that moment. Maybe it was crucial. Maybe it had no impact whatsoever. We don't know. But I don't think we should overstate. I can't say enough that it wasn't the Meath Loud situation. Like, you can't. It's a tiny. 100 times out of 100, if you get asked, would you rather be Crokes or Glen in that scenario?
In terms of now.
Yeah, like if you were in that scenario, do you want to be Crokes or Glen?
Well, obviously, Crokes had the lead.
100 times out of 100, you're picking Crokes.
Yeah, of course.
I think it's a tiny percentage play. I know that at that point you're into, well, I think it's a bit more than tiny, and I think it's a bit less than tiny, and it's into a bit of a weird sort of...
If you'd asked me in the 93rd minute at 1-1 and or 1-0 to Bayern Munich in 99, who'd you rather be? I'd rather be in Bayern's situation.
You know what I think's happened?
This is sport. Anything can happen.
It's 5 days ago, right? I don't even think people know where they stand anymore. I don't even think people remember their original opinion of this. Like, this has gone so convoluted that, like, please make a decision on this before the weekend is out so we can all move on with our lives.
Well, I think that,
how much more can we talk about this?
I don't know if a decision will be made, but obviously Crokes will respond at some point. The next
the GEA thing is an important point that Nicky Brennan touched on. That, like, the fact that something has to come out of this, and his fear, as you say, Adrian, like that it won't happen. Like, I thought the dinosaurs were wiped out 60 million years ago by that comet, but there's still dinosaurs in the GEA to this day who refuse to change things, and I'm concerned that nothing will be changed here, whether it's substitutions or communication on the sideline or whatever, or maybe just a quicker decision from the GA on all this.
I tell you what's more important from this. It's more important that a rule is changed for the better than a replay occurring, in my opinion, because then it's a legacy, and actually this is probably the best thing that ever happened.
Then there's an asterisk.
Then there will be
an asterisk.
No, forget about this.
Oh, there is.
No,
it's not an asterisk situation.
Forget about it.
Kilmacode's win will always be
You've already accepted. How is it? You've already accepted that it's a tiny percentage, so you can't say.
Yeah, but it's not zero. It's not zero. So that's the point. This is sport. Anything could have happened.
It's not Loud Meath either.
No.
There's no need for people to be as outraged about the Loud Meath stuff as they are about this.
No, but Damien Cassidy.
I'm not saying that. Like, I've already said on the show yesterday, just replay the game, just run it again, just do it, right? But, like, it's not as extreme as, this premeditated sort of.
No, and I never said it was premeditated. Like, I'll make that clear. Definitely not premeditated. Like, my gauge is the fact that the Darren Mullen was on the line. Damien Cassidy said, look, it definitely has an impact, an extra player being on the pitch at that point.
Who knows?
Who knows? But that's the point. Who knows? So it has to be a replay. I think it is a tainted win, regardless.
I think that is overstating it.
I disagree. I think if Kilmacud win a replay, all well and good. If Glen win a replay, all well and good. The win is there for either team.
You have to accept as well. There are a lot of people piling on here because it's Crokes. You have to accept that. I think that if it was a different club,
maybe originally, but I think people have moved on. Can I make a suggestion?
Go on.
Can we move on from this?
Tommy here on YouTube. Tommy 2 times. Good morning to you, Tommy 2 times. Adrian Shane having it out in Colm, just reading the paper. Gas man. Just reading the paper, says Paul Mallon, in the middle of a conversation, live on air, on camera. Good man.
Well, I was just looking at other stories because I was waiting for you to finish. But I did enjoy the back and forth. It was very good. But I don't know, we can talk about other things.
There's loads of other comments there, and let's come back to them a little bit later on, because
we're going to hit this.
I do appreciate that there is a bit of plenty, and I have loads of it, fatigue about this story. But equally, it's
well, we have a slot dedicated to it at 20 past 8, you know.
Yeah, we'll come back to the comments as well at some point. What else are we talking about?
Jack McCarron was an issue that we discussed last night on the team WhatsApp group. This has got people talk about GA controversies. It kind of segues in nicely. It's not quite a controversy, but Jack McCarron, one of Monaghan's top players, reaching his prime at the moment. There he is with.
Is this why you brought this up?
It's not at all. But I mean, clearly I looked like I was playing
midfield. You look very well there. Look at your arms.
Yeah, well, I wasn't.
That's why you brought it up.
Looks delighted to be there.
But that's after. It highlights how important Jack McCarron is to Monaghan football, because Monaghan have been. This is the 9th year of Division 1 football for Monaghan. And last kick of the ball, free kick, Jack McCarron nails a free kick to relegate the Dubs in Clonus, keep Monaghan in the division by the skin of their teeth. And the year before, Galway, 7 points down in Clonus, and Jack McCarron in extra time, just before the game goes to penalties, kicks an unbelievable score from play to relegate Galway and keep Monaghan in the division. He plays for a junior club in Monaghan called Curran. This is a very rural junior club, probably hit a lot by emigration and not many numbers. But he plays for them. He's had a bit of success. I think they might have won a junior championship in Monaghan a number of years ago. Dick Clerkin's club as well. But Jack's dad, Ray, who's a Monaghan legend, played for Scottstown. Scottstown are the Kilmacud of Monaghan football. They're the big dogs. They're the super club. They have a big parish. It's not quite the same, but they have won a lot of senior Monaghan championships, and they're probably the dominant team at the moment. You have two Hughes brothers, Rory Began, Shane Carey, Conor McCarthy. A lot of the county panel backbone is made up of Scottstown players. Jack has put in a transfer that was approved this week by the Monaghan County Board to move from Curran, the junior club, the lowly club, to Scottstown. Now, of course, he wants to win his senior championships. Ray McCarron, as I said, his dad played for Scottstown. His grandfather, before he emigrated to Luton, played for Scottstown. So it's in his family, and apparently a transfer is made easier when you have that father rule where your parent has played for the club.
Easier in the sense that people don't get as irate as they do about Shane Walsh.
Maybe because he has that family link, but it's also probably a little bit controversial in that, you know, he's moving from a junior club to a senior club. I wish him all the best. But it's got the people on the streets of Monaghan talking.
The point is, I'm reading between the lines what you're saying. He's not moving because of his family links. He's moving because he wants to win a senior championship.
Well, that's what I would expect.
Yeah, which is what Shane Walsh did.
Yeah, and I know he's links. He's living up in Tyrone at the moment, I think, and he could have moved to a club up there. I think, is it Errigal Kieran? Maybe he was one of the clubs in the Tyrone championship. So he actually
that would have been even more controversial. Would that have been easier? Actually,
I think less controversial because you're moving counties a little bit. And it's where he lives. It's kind of like Shane Walsh. The Shane Walsh situation here would have been him playing in Tyrone, but he decided to play for Scottstown. So it's a controversial one, but I'm interested to see people's opinions on the whole GA transfer within a county, because we've seen it happen outside of a county, but when it happens within a county, it's almost more controversial. But look, it's juice.
We're going to do later on. We've a slot that we've planned out for months and months and months that we have been itching to do.
Yeah.
And do you want to give people a heads up, and then they can sort of contribute their own list?
The final slot of the show today, just to wrap up the week, we're going to do what we call an OTB panel, where it will be Shane, Adrian, myself, and Kathleen McNamee. And I have posed the question to the three guys, and they're going to come with an answer, and it involves socialising with people of note. Do you
want to just actually
tune in? Tune in for the slot itself.
So we'd like people to get involved.
To this studio,
we'd like people to get involved. So do you want to just give them?
We have a TV here, so now to watching live sport, and in the last few moments, Stefanos Tsitsipas has qualified for the Australian.
I thought we were headed down
qualified for the Australian Open.
Three people that you'd like to have at dinner. Send in your list.
It's his second Grand Slam final.
Send in your jokes.
And the first Grand Slam final he played was the French Open in 2021, where he played Novak Djokovic and was 2 sets up And Djokovic forgot about that in a press conference this week when he was asked about it. And Djokovic is set to play Tommy Paul this morning, imminently. And should he win that, it'll be a repeat of that 2021 final. Tsitsipas against Djokovic on the women's side. Aryna Sabalenka into her first Grand Slam final, having lost 3 Grand Slam semi-finals previously. But what's actually very interesting about this, even if you don't follow tennis, is yesterday, after her semi-final victory, Sabalenka was asked, why is your form so good suddenly? Because she's unbeaten this year. She won the warm-up tournament in Adelaide. She reached the WTA finals, the final of that, where the top 8 players play each other in the back end of last year. And she said, quite simply, I ditched my psychiatrist because I realised that other people couldn't fix my own problems, and I had to start taking responsibility for my own problems, which is interesting. It's kind of going the opposite way from, I think, the general well-being of people now is like share your problems, and a problem shared is a problem halved, and she's kind of going the other way, saying that she needs to take more responsibility. Yeah,
so the psychiatrist said she'd done too good a job.
Exactly. That's exactly. She said she was delegating too much of her own well-being to an outside source, and since she's changed that, and look, maybe this is relatable to people in their lives. I thought it was kind of an interesting point, and Richie played it in the news round last night, and even hearing her say it is more powerful again, the way she said it. So she's into the final, and she'll play Alina Rybakina, who is the reigning Wimbledon champion, who has won 2 titles in her career, so 50% of them is the biggest tournament you can win, and she's yet to reach a final since that Wimbledon 26 months ago, but she's played many tournaments, hasn't reached a final since.
Mad.
But I would back Rybakina to beat Sabalenka in tomorrow's final, even though Sabalenka has a 3-0 winning record against Rybakina.
Where does the Australian Open rank in terms of your personal favourite Grand Slams?
Good question. I would say
Power
it's
ranking.
it's Wimbledon number 1, US Open 2, Australian Open 3, French Open 4. And the reason that Roland Garros is last is because aesthetically it's actually quite tough to watch it, because you have the burnt orange clay versus a yellow ball, and if it's sunny it's almost impossible if you're at a certain angle to actually see where the ball is, and you're going by the body language of the players. I love the vibe of the US Open. I just love like the buzz around it, and like I kind of like the timing as well, the way you can watch it, because it's kind of a lot of like late night watching, and the crowd are brilliant in New York. And
tennis becomes mainstream because the winners go on to all the chat shows in America, and Jimmy Fallon.
Exactly, it's the one time it kind of comes into people's consciousness, and like, tennis is fighting for some attention there on Twitter. The last time I can remember it happening purely for tennis terms was when Djokovic played Nadal at the French Open quarterfinal in 2021, and it was the same night that the Euro started.
Oh yeah.
Italy against Turkey, and this was actually more popular than Italy-Turkey because it was such a good match. It's very often you get a brilliant tennis match and nothing happens.
Could they change the colour of the ball for the French Open? Is that a possibility? Or do tennis balls have to be that luminous green?
I think it's like a football, so they start using this yellow football versus the white one at winter time, so it's easier to see.
It's just waiting for Adrian.
And I think it's actually the easiest.
I know it's pedantic. But it's
I'm just thinking that I met referenced Father Stone earlier on. What colour ball should they have at the French Open? Do you think, Colm?
If it affects the viewers' experience,
should they have different colour balls? Maybe.
To stay with Father Ted, he's just killing time like Mrs. Doyle. Well, that's enough stalling.
Have you ever been to one of them?
The Australian Open, and it's brilliant. It's really, really good. It was 2014, the year Stan Wawrinka won it.
You never made it over to Wimbledon?
I've literally gone to the outside of Wimbledon, queued, and couldn't get in. But our own Kathleen McNamee covered Wimbledon for a previous employer. So I'm very keen to get over. But the Australian Open is amazing if you ever get a chance, if you're over there, ever get a chance to do it. The best thing about it is the access to the training courts, and you're like, the distance between myself and Shane in this studio, which is not very large, and you're right up close person with the greatest players in the game, and just seeing how effortless it is for these people to hit ground strokes, and they have training partners whose full-time job is to rally with these professionals. So they're technically brilliant, these training partners, but they could never compete in a match. And it just goes to show the difference in levels as you go up the ladder.
The worst thing about it is that they go on until like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, of course.
The Australian Open scheduling is absolute nonsense. Is it
for what? Is it TV? Is it for TV over here? Or
no, look, they love the night schedule. That's when most people watch it. But the problem is they're having like the best of 5 set matches. Basically, the women's should be on that time because it's the best of 3. So it's going to finish at a reasonable hour. And also they just need to make women's tennis more prominent anyway. But they always put the men's games last, right? French Open are awful for this as well. And the Andy Murray match last Friday finished at like 4:06 a.m.
Stupid stuff.
4:06 a.m. Why didn't they just call it at midnight and resume the next day? It was a great match, brilliant match. But like, Murray's exhausted.
Yeah.
Then he's done from it. And there was barely anybody left in the stadium to watch one of the greatest matches
did the
of the
people
last
leave?
12. Of course they did. It's 4 a.m.
Yeah.
If I was
mental.
there, I'm not leaving.
Loads of comments coming into us here about all sorts. We've thrown out, if you had 3 dinner guests to have for sports people that are currently alive, don't have to be active, but still alive at least.
Adrian spoiled this. I really did think that you would all tune in at 9:15.
No, but I think people might tune in now
as
to
you
sort
go.
of
But no, the problem is now you're going. No, the problem is they're going to.
Cathal Doherty has got the ball rolling.
Okay, go ahead.
If
you got the ball rolling,
if you could.
Please.
Give us a second.
Children.
Carl Doherty says dinner table includes Enoch Burke, myself, and John Rogers.
That's good. No, you see, the problem is if people.
If you would take him for dinner, at least the rest of us wouldn't have to look at this.
No. The problem is if the person hasn't taken into account the fact that if Enoch Burke is there, his dad has to be there.
No, you see, this is the problem now. Brian has come in with
for John Rogers. It's actually already around the table.
A great suggestion there by Brian in the live comments is Roy Keane, Jose Mourinho, and Johnny Ward, and that would be fantastic dinner. But the problem is now I don't want people coming in beforehand because it will colour all your thoughts, and then you'll be influenced by other people.
No. I have my own thoughts written down.
I have one of my thoughts written down, so I'm open to suggestion if people want to.
Give me more. What was Damien Delaney's selection?
Stalin,
Joseph Stalin,
Napoleon, and I can't remember the third.
I mean, already.
I remember the third.
Famous for their sporting prowess.
Yeah. Listen, we go ahead there, I'd say.
Thanks, Colm. Thanks for coming in and for paying attention after reading the papers for the first 10 minutes.
Well, it was such a fascinating
5 to 8
argument.
on this Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM, brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. If you really want him, he might come back in the studio a little bit later on and talk to us about something or other. Who knows what it'll be, but in the meantime, do keep those guest lists coming into us. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 for you this morning. We've Ronan O'Gara standing by to chat to us about all things La Rochelle and rugby and beyond in a couple of moments' time. Catherine Murphy will join us live from Melbourne around the Australian Open as the men's semi-finals. One more of those to go after Tsitsipas win earlier today, and obviously the women's final lineup is now known. Maurice Deegan, with apologies to some and no apologies to others, will be along to run the rule over what how the officials what's the right word? Officiated. Come on, Shane. How the officials officiated at the game on Sunday. John Duggan will be in studio to he's going to reflect on that famous Barbarians try 50 years ago and let us know what's coming up for the weekend and off the ball as well. We go around the world with the stories that couldn't make headlines elsewhere but have somehow found their way into a slot and off the ball at 5 to 9 with Shane.
We have Car Crash who's commented. I hope Shane gets a 10-minute slot of cringe today, lads. Car Crash is my biggest hater on YouTube. Every time he's on in the mornings, he'll say something nasty about me, something nasty to me. Car Crash, I hope you enjoy Around the World because I've got my 10 minutes of cringe. Tune in and you can leave all the hateful abuse you want towards me. Just keep the language clean and I'll read it out and enjoy it. Fair play. I hope people leave some positive comments as well. I know I'm going to be trying to convince you, Adrian, of the...
There's plenty of those, Shane. You know that you don't read them out. You don't pay enough attention to them, but there's plenty of those out there too. It's coming up on 8 o'clock. Conor Hourihane, by the way, is the other guest that we'll have a little bit later on. He was on chatting to Nathan last night about a range of topics, including Roy Keane, funny enough, and that'll be coming your way just before 10 this morning. But it is nearly 8 o'clock. Ronan O'Gara, good morning to you.
Hi, Adrian. How are you?
How are you keeping?
Great. You?
Flying it, yeah. An interesting week at this side of the water. I don't know if you've paid any attention to GA events, the club final last weekend.
Yes, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, big drama, difficult one really because it's there was 2 minutes left in the game, wasn't it? An extra man for 2 minutes.
It was an extra man for it, and I'm slightly biased in the conversation because it's my club, adopted club. But the ball was in play for about less than 10 seconds. Anyway, yeah, I think overall
it was a crucial move. It
was a 45 last kick of the game, Ronan, and yeah, they had an extra man on the pitch, stood in the goal line, free gets taken. Squeezes wide. Nobody realises all this is going on. Actually, apart from the opposition manager who's asked the officials to do something about it, and they didn't. And then obviously the trophy gets presented, the homecoming happens, and now suddenly here we are, sort of 5 or 6 days later, waiting still talking about it and potentially looking at a replay. A mess, I think.
Yeah,
is the short story.
Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah.
If there's a hypothetical situation for you, Ronan, on that, say you win a Grand Slam. You end up realising afterwards you had 16 men on the ball for a final line out or some move, and the opposition say something after the match and appeal it. Does it taint the win for you hypothetically, or do you care as a winning team?
there has to be something in your conscience, even if it's for 10 seconds, having 16 men on the pitch. It's an error in that regard, I think. But what you need action straight away, because if they're made aware of it, and in the aftermath, obviously when it's a final, it becomes extremely awkward, because once there's a prize-giving ceremony, you can't really controlled people's emotion and said, oh well, hold on, there's a potential replay here, because that's not how players think or anyone thinks. But I think if there's if it was for 10 or 15 minutes playing with an extra man, there's obviously probably a very solid chance of a replay taking place. But for the last three of a game, it's probably put into the sector of a yellow card or a red card in the game, and it's a decision that the referee made during the game, and it's live and mistakes happen. You sometimes have to swallow your pride, take that and move on. But as you say, when there's uncertainty the Friday after it becomes a shambles.
Yeah. And it's an amateur game, and you add all that sort of stuff into the mix as well. But look, there's plenty of people, I'm sure, watching this morning going, Jesus, will you move on and stop talking to Ronan about it? So we'll do that. We were chatting a few weeks ago about sort of, you agreed, I think, that you were able to literally breathe a bit easier, I think, when you were sat well in the top 14 and sitting very well in the Heineken Cup now as well. Home tie in the knockouts confirmed. Does the environment around the place reflect that? Like, is it calm? Is it settled? Everybody knows what they're doing, and everybody in good form and in good shape? Or no?
No, it's obviously a lot of work in progress, Adrian. I think every week has its own challenges. We've obviously performed well in Europe. Now it's back into top 14, and top 14 is very, very, very competitive. An away game this weekend, and we're going to Racing, who are only 3 points behind us. So there's so much at stake, I suppose, in all these league games that it feels like you're playing Europe every week. But this is our 9th game in a row, so it's asking a lot of the squad, but that means that you can rotate the team, and it creates a good environment and creates a lot of competition for places. And we're missing our French internationals this weekend, but that's not a problem. It's something we're probably ready for, and something that boys are looking forward to, because it gives other squad members a go.
Like, when you compare it to previous seasons, even last season, do you have a sense at this stage of the season, like, I mean, maybe a little bit more than halfway through, that you're on the right track, that there aren't great tweaks needed, that if we can keep going, keep everybody fit, that we're going to be thereabouts?
I think, strangely, as the coach, you don't really think in generalities. You probably have to be a little bit more specific in where you need your game to get better. As you say, yeah, happy with this, happy with that, but not happy with that. We need to get better with this. But it's constant tweaking, and that's probably on a daily basis. I don't think you can have a general view. Obviously, you're judged on your games, but unless there's a kind of a big outlier, you'd like to think that what you're doing Monday to Friday will transfer to the pitch on a Saturday. Sometimes it doesn't work like that, and you get, I suppose, left scratching your head. But I suppose the last month has been pleasing in the fact that we have consistency of results, which are wins, but not consistency of performance, which is a big difference.
Is it tough, Ronan, when you've had a win like the Heineken Champions Cup last year, and you're a winning team, where you're probably at this stage now this season where you're like, geez, if we just did everything the same as we did last year, we'll go on to win again. But the reality is, you always have to be, as a coaching team and as a set of players, moving on, finding new ways of finding motivation and keeping the thing moving. Like, you have to keep adapting.
You do, exactly. And I suppose, unlike in business, the big difference in sport, it moves quicker and you don't stay the same. While in business you can stay the same, in sport you can't. You either get better or you get worse. So there's times definitely where I felt we're getting worse, but that would be, I suppose, the glass half empty in me. Then there's other times when you go, okay, as Adrian said, if we get this and this combination on the pitch with potentially this, I suppose, element of our game, right, I feel that we have most definitely the tools to hopefully go along in both competitions.
Is it about on that? Like, is it about tweaking your system and your plays, and as you said there, we need to do this better or that better, or is it about sort of fitting different pegs into different holes given injuries or suspensions or whatever the case, or a little bit of both maybe?
It's not even anything as complex as that. I think it's very much more basic. What's happening, I suppose, in rugby now is the workload of the forwards is completely different to the back, so you have, depending on how you decide who finishes the game, you could have 13 minimum or 14 forwards preparing for a game. So essentially only 2 finish the game that start. And in the top 14, you're allowed to make numerous changes. So I suppose tactical changes are hugely important. So with 14, 13 players, getting that, I suppose, organisation and level of efficiency right in 8 players is challenging enough, but in 13, 14 it becomes very challenging. But that's what I suppose what makes the job exciting, because depending on different combinations of how you set up in a line-out, whether you're going to launch your attack from a line-out or whether you prefer launching your attack from a phase game, it all depends on how we see the game, and aligning that with your coaches, aligning that with your players, aligning that with the players who finished the game. It sounds simple, yet the execution of it isn't that simple, because I think how I set up teams is probably a skill set structure or mindset. Skill set errors are, from a coaching point of view, are okay. What does my head in is structure. Errors, which would be people getting their role wrong because we haven't prepared them well enough, not they haven't prepared themselves. It's my responsibility. So that's something that I do keep an eye on, but we are not as fluid as we need to be.
Go on, Shane.
Sorry, I was fascinated to read Jerry Thornley's piece in Irish Times this week. Ronan, where he's talking about the Champions Cup pool stages at the moment and how bloated they are, and how, I think the way he described it was, it's belated urgency and jeopardy, and it kind of only becomes crucial towards the end of the pool stages. What's your take on the current setup and the current, system in the Champions Cup? Is it perfect?
No, it's far. I think maybe because we were so used to it at the start that it just became ingrained in us, the 6 pools of 4, but that was absolutely perfect in an Irish model. In a French model, that really doesn't work, because there's already 26 league games in France, so if you want another 6 games in Europe, that's 32 without the playoffs for the league, without the playoffs for Europe, without internationals, without the World Championship, which is proposed to come in. There's only a certain number of weeks in the year, so something has to give. Where I think there's weakness in the current Champions Cup is the fact that qualifying for a team isn't the issue, while before it was very difficult to qualify to get top of your pool, which meant you go through. Now, as you say, if you finish 8th in your group, you come up against 1 in the other group, but you're away and the odds are harder, but you can still pull it off. While the flip side, I suppose, is that where you look at Leinster, La Rochelle, Toulouse, is that they've won their pool games, and now their draw is more favourable because they have games at home, which is obviously a big advantage.
It's going back, according to the Telegraph, there was a report out last night that it's going back to that model of pools of 4. That's obviously something you welcome.
I don't see how that will get passed in France.
Really?
Yeah, that was just a talk on kind of on the street in terms of inquiring why isn't that, and I think the French presidents have 4 free weeks, isn't it? But they don't have 6 free weeks. There's capacity to get the European Cup in on on 4 weekends, but not on 6 weekends.
Is that just a blip, Ronan? The French team's kind of struggling a little bit this year, obviously aside from yourselves and Toulouse maybe. There's no underlying problem there.
No, it's just very competitive, and it depends on, I suppose the background to this would be traditionally with the top 14 at around 15, 16, 17, 80, the data suggests that a lot of squads are riddled with injuries, and it is the case because you're competing week in, week out, and there's no break, there's no periodization of the programming. It's all on. So some teams play on the two fronts, other teams don't treat Europe as seriously as shall we say an Irish or a Welsh or an English teams would. But I think when you come over and experience the competitiveness of the top 14, you can understand that. But the URC teams have performed well. Some French teams have probably not got what they would have wanted out of the Champions Cup, and like always, there aren't any really hard luck stories.
Just to come back slightly to what we were chatting about earlier on about your work on the pitch, so you're 10 years into it now, is it? Am I right about that? Thereabouts?
Yeah.
What are you in a position now where, particularly obviously given your role has changed over the last year and a half, are you in a position now where you're doing more of the stuff that you like, or I was actually only thinking about it in the context of the Ian Costello appointment of Munster as head of rugby operations, and how that might sort of relieve a lot of potentially the work that Graham Rowntree was doing, maybe that he didn't have so much graw for, that it might be an opportunity for him to focus a bit more on the stuff that he likes doing. What's your balance at the minute?
Very simply, I do what I like and what I want. Otherwise, I don't think I get the best out of myself. If I don't get the best out of myself, how can I get the best out of players? It's very simple. Might sound like an aggressive answer, but it's not. I think the most important thing is you do what you love, you do what you enjoy. I don't work, as I say. I challenge my passion every day. That's what I do. It's frustrating at times. It's hugely rewarding at other times. But I think if you can't work out in your head what's important or what you're good at and what you're not good at, forget about it.
What's your favourite bit of it?
On the pitch.
Yeah, right. You, in your Examiner column this morning, you're saying you've taken a bit of a step back from that.
Sorry, just in the fact where on the pitch, I don't need to be the referee. In the fact when you're reffing kind of games, I don't need to ref that. I can get someone else, or I can share doing that. Because when you're the referee, you're focused solely on that job. While maybe it's better, and maybe in 6 weeks' time I could have a different opinion, because as Shane said, you have to continuously adapt. But you can see where the space is. You can see where you're making errors, as opposed to being wound up in the player's mentality where they're contesting some decisions and you're trying to referee it as best you can. That's not my skill.
What do you find gets your most as part of that, what is the bit that you're every week going, right, that the creative juice is going to get going here, this is what I'm really looking forward to? I suppose every day is very different, because you're seeing, that's the difference, I suppose, being in camp and judging on, for example, you seeing Ireland or Munster or Leinster for the 80 minutes at the weekend. When you're the coach, you see a different side to them completely on a Monday, on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, on a Thursday, on a Friday, and then the game may or may not match up at all to what they've shown during the week. And then as you add weeks and months onto that, then it becomes a kind of, I suppose, a fascinating experiment, because in your head you're kind of going, well, this guy should be ahead of where he actually is playing or performing at the minute. And then when you have that multiplied by 35, it's there's a lot of thinking time in that.
Fascinated when you're talking about that, Ronan, and the training ground etiquette and stuff. Like Frank Lampard getting the sack from Everton this week. We were kind of having this conversation earlier in the week where one of the Everton players, I think it was Onana maybe, was pointing out that Frank Lampard was one of the best players in training, and he's the manager, he's retired, maybe doesn't speak too well to the quality that Everton were showing in training. But is there that aspect to it as well? Do you find that there's a competitive aspect to yourself even when you're in training, when When the ball makes its way in your direction?
No. I'm completely washed up. It's over. That I just have to be careful from just from an injury point of view. Like some of the guys, I wouldn't want Bhatia, the Fijian 7-12, running into me, because he could do untold damage. And there aren't many like him, thankfully, still playing the game from people that play against us. But you have to be on your toes, because that guy, he doesn't really like running towards the sideline. He runs north-south. You have to get out of his way, because whether you're the referee or not, I don't think he has that factored into his head when he's carrying the ball. So, you have to have a little bit of evasive skills, but I can tell you that has most definitely slowed down. The reactions are, oh no.
Do you ever throw the tee down in training? Like, is it like riding a bike, or is it completely different? Do you have to keep practicing to be at that level, or is it you could pick up a tee and still kick to a certain percentage close to where you were?
Oh no, it's unbelievably cold. I'm stiff. Bending down would be a success at this stage, Shane. Are you joking me? Not a chance I could. No.
Shane has no appreciation for the man in his mid-40s, Ronan. A bit more sympathy for you.
Yeah, no sympathy.
Absolutely.
I was very surprised is not right, but it's interesting to see your comments in the Examiner again this morning, just about your passion for that Barbarians try, 50 years old, an incredible work, and how it inspired you in some ways. Is that overstating it?
No, it's exactly it. That's your first memories are usually the ones that stay with you, and that's you can see it perfectly, so vividly, like it's yesterday, and these are all the guys that made you dream and made you chase your own dream. And I can picture that image absolutely perfectly. The Barbarians rugby is very, very important, especially the way the game is going. I think that week we had in London this year, playing the All Black 15 was such a special week, and such a refreshing week, and a very enriching week.
The commentary of that clip alone is just outstanding.
Yeah, it is, and there's obviously there are new voices coming on that are marking the sport, but I think, as you can say, from over the years, the commentary of certain tries are the one that are etched in your brain.
Cliff Morgan, he wasn't even supposed to be on the commentary. Bill McCarron got sick a couple of hours beforehand, and he got wheeled in.
Love that.
Woof. I mean, not as if Bill McCarron was any slouch himself, but geez, what a commentary.
Yeah, it was.
We were having a conversation on the show today, Ronan. You might have no answers for this whatsoever, but it's a slot we've kind of invented up. Your dinner party, your hypothetical dinner party. We've had this discussion with different sports people before, of sports people who are alive and well, not necessarily still playing, but they can be retired from any sport: golf, tennis, boxing, rugby, football, snooker and darts. I know as well are a couple of options. Like, if there were three sports men or women who you could. I suppose you have to be conscious of the dynamic at the dinner table as well here, but it's a conversation we're going to be having later in the show, so curious to get your thoughts. I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
How many can I have?
3.
Right. Typically me. I'll go Roy, Barry McGuigan, Sonia, Johnny Sexton, Ronnie O'Sullivan, myself, Paul O'Connell, Ruby Walsh, and Henry Shefflin.
Tell you what,
Joe Canning.
Oh,
10. That is. See, the thing is, like, we're having this hypothetical conversation around it, like, we know it'll never happen. That could end up happening.
Do you know what though? you mightn't be great at maths, Ronan, but you're definitely good at organising a dinner party. I mean, I think it's 10 there, but it's a good dinner party.
It's a little bit like the commentary, as you said. Bill McCarron wasn't meant to do what Cliff Morgan nipped in. It's the same always, as you know, same as going to the darts or the snooker. It's the the parties that aren't planned are the best ones.
Exactly, yeah. Like the one we'll have in December at the darts, 100%. That's a good part. That's a good dinner party there, lads. Jesus.
Yeah, you've put down the gauntlet to the rest of us.
You're
Ronan, thanks a million.
We'd have to have it in Paul O'Connell's house though, because he has that big new table in the dining room.
Is this something I haven't seen this yet? Is this on social media? Is it or?
Oh no! I'm just actually making this up on the spot. Sorry.
You've put proper thought into this. You've got a venue sorted as well.
The thing is, now he's going to get asked about this at the next Ireland press conference. This will be the main topic.
In where does he go? Liscannor, is it? I think.
Down in the depths of Clare somewhere.
No, it'd be good though, wouldn't it?
Oh, to be a fly in the wall.
Away there.
Roger and Ronnie in the corner having chats about snooker.
After we do the van to the darts in the summertime, that'll be the next roadshow after that. Good man. Thanks, Ronan.
All right, chat to you later.
Cheers.
Bye.
That's a pretty good answer for off the top of the head stuff.
I'm gonna have a listen back to those 10 answers, but I mean, Jesus, what Barry McGuigan, Rog himself,
all the Corks.
Yeah, Paul O'Connell, Sonia, Roy,
Henry, Joe
Henry.
Canning, Johnny Sexton.
Oh, imagine the different myriad of conversations going on at that table about elite sport. I'd like to think they talk about other things as well, but the conversation, it would need a big table.
There'd nearly be too many there to have a good conversation.
Sorry, I was thinking of asking him that question because it's on the fly and I haven't given him any prep at all. We didn't warn Ronan about that question. I'm thinking he's not going to be able to think of one here. And then he bangs out 10.
Somebody made a good point. Emma there, just making a good point. We were saying to him, has he got a new table? This isn't such a... No, I just made that up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Paul's house is nice. It could well host it, so... Yeah, that's something I'm going to have to think of myself, a venue for this hypothetical dinner party.
I'm still only got one on my list, but anyway, I'll have to get working. I did say we were talking about it for months. We came up with it a little bit earlier today. It's 8:20. It's OTB AM. Delighted to have you with us this morning. There's loads of comments coming in. Fergus Keogh says his dinner table will be Rory McIlroy, Patrick Reed and Roy Keane to roll his eyes at the pair of them. Oh. Well, you might sort of get a bird's eye view as to what the pair of them would look like up close and personal if the golf continues as it is in Dubai at the minute, because they'll be the leading pair heading into the weekend. You couldn't script it. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. During the ads, we're going to see a short clip from Irish Olympic hockey player, e-scooter racer Nikki Daly. She's taking part in our OTB Games Room. It's all in partnership with Virgin Media. Bring your A game with 99.9% broadband reliability. She's up against Nathan in a game of FIFA, and it's stunning is what it says here in front of me. We're going to be back after that. We're going to have some more Kilmacud Glen chat as promised. We're going to be joined by the former GAA referee Maurice Deegan for the ref's perspective on what happened last Sunday in Croke Park.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
OTB GAA.
So far as the GAA are concerned, in this matter, it's nothing to do with the individual teams. This is to do with the GAA protecting its own rules, protecting its own reputation.
Delivery are once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, and they have a legitimate position to challenge that due to the incompetence of the GAA.
Subscribe to the OTB GAA podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh, fancy, look at that.
See,
you're in the post. That's what you get now for showing
sitting
off.
back, relaxing, celebrating. So do you drive cars now? Competitively?
No, I race electric scooters.
You race electric scooters?
Yeah.
Just like all the other electric scooter people race them along the road beside the cars, or?
No, it's a world championship that just got launched last year, brand new sport.
Right.
Called electric scooter
racing. And
racing.
when did you decide you wanted to race electric scooters?
When they asked me would I do it last year, I was like,
wow.
Yeah, that sounds like something I'd be into.
And what sort of tracks do you go around?
So it's street, like in the cities, they create purpose-built tracks in the city centres in Europe. So we went to London, Sion in Switzerland, and we were in Marseille in France.
And how have you been getting on?
A lot better than I expected at the beginning of the year. I finished 8th in the championship out of 30 riders, so
that's pretty impressive.
I was delighted with that.
And how many people around the world are competing in?
There was 30 riders this year from sort of all over the world, from different sort of sporting backgrounds. They had, anywhere from professional snowboarders, skiers, motorcycle racers, hockey players. So it was a good mix. It was a very diverse sort of group of riders that they had.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
It's 8:25 and good morning to you, and we've loads to come on the show. We're going to have John Duggan in the studio in just a little bit, and he's going to have a little bit more fond reflections of that famous Barbarians try of 50 years ago now. So we'll do that, and he'll also tell us what's going on in the sports news, update the tennis, I'm sure, and plenty more besides as well. And we're going to have an OTB panel a little bit later on. The topic up for discussion is who would be your 3 dream dinner guests from the world of sport who are currently alive. So slightly hypothetical, and then also not sort of so far-fetching that, you know, they do actually need to be alive. We've had Ronan O'Gara's, and I think none of the rest of us going to get close. Is what's happening there, but plenty of people sending in theirs, so please do that. And then we're going to have Shane's stories as well from around the world of stories that didn't make the headlines elsewhere. So we've got a slap for them.
We'll give them their headline.
We found a home for them. Before all of that, we're going back to what has turned out to be the main story of the week, and delighted to say that a well-respected former intercounty referee, retired now but long-standing, of course, Maurice Deegan joins us on the line. Good morning to you, Maurice.
Morning, Adrian. Morning.
How are you keeping?
Shane, how are things? Good, and yourselves?
Good man. Good to have you on again. Were you ever involved in anything like this that you can recall?
Nothing that I can recall off memory now, to be honest with you now, you know, but like it has happened in previous games down the years, like, but nothing I'd say to such a high profile as this game.
It's a ref's nightmare, isn't it?
You look at, you'd have to feel sorry for the referee. Like, at the end of the day, the rule states it's the team's responsibility, and the team being Kilmacud Crokes. And look, Kilmacud Crokes are not in a nice position either. Like, do you know what I mean? But it's Kilmacud Crokes' responsibility that they have 15 on the field. But to be fair, it's the referees and the linesmen and the fourth official's job to control that. So. It really is a very unfortunate situation, both on the Glen, both on Kilmacud Crokes, both on the referees and team officials.
For sure. There's clearly a grey area, even as you describe it there, which is partly sort of the source of the confusion here.
There is, like, do you know what I mean? Like, there is, look at this rule 644 that everyone is talking about. It's plain and black and white as to what should happen when this arises. But as the saying goes, like, probably the biggest problem is, I'd say all week is that for all people that the decision should have been probably made quicker.
What is the substitutions process in Gaelic football at the moment, Maurice? And the fact that I've played Gaelic at club level and I'm still asking this question speaks volumes. Like, you know, sometimes at club level you bring on the piece of paper, hand it to the referee, certainly at underage, and that's the substitution made. And it's not like soccer where the fourth official is standing there with the board and they're checking the boots and the player comes off and only then the other player comes on. What's the actual process in a game like last weekend?
Look, if we're going to go by last weekend's, look, with club, you know yourself, as you said yourself, Adrian, you come in, you've only the referee to deal with, so obviously you bring the slip into the referee and he'll take the slip and you'll come on and the other player will go off. But in, last Sunday's situation, what would have happened was you'd have having, like, the referee wouldn't be involved at all. He'd only be told when the substitutes would be coming in and coming out. He would stop the game and would always be a break and play. What would happen then is obviously the secretary of either club would give the substitute slips to the fourth official. He would then let the linesman on, or he would let the referee know, and the referee would obviously hold up the game until the process was finished. But there was so much going on. I'd say last Sunday was in injury time. There was only 2 points in it. The linesman was standing on the 45 for the line. The fourth official, I'd say the two teams were coming at him left, right, and centre to try, one probably getting on to him about the time, the other one then trying to get in the subs, and it was just a very unfortunate situation.
The one thing that's been mentioned is that Malachy O'Rourke obviously had spotted this and had said to one of the officials, the linesman, said, listen, could we retake the 45? Which would have seen, look, at hindsight is great, and you get to spend 4 or 5 days thinking about it and think, well, that might have been a good thing to do. But at that time, was it just because it would seem like a very obvious thing for them to have just acknowledged it at that time, retaken the 45, and let there be no sort of doubt about the outcome? At that time, is it just the mayhem that you described, Maurice, that sort of kicks in, and heads have sort of gone a little bit on all sides, or what's your sense of how that didn't happen, I suppose?
I think it's a little bit like that. Like, it would have been hard to say, look, let's retake the 45 if the ball had a drop and if Conor Lassiter had scored a goal and he turn around to him, and would Malachy have said, would he have said to the 45? I don't think so. That type of thing. It was just very unfortunate. But like, the biggest problem was that like, the decision probably should have been made earlier on it, and I'm sure everyone is in agreement with that.
You mean earlier, as in the GA should have come out sooner after the game?
Probably, yeah. Probably should. Yes, someone should have come out and made a decision on it straight away. So that would be my opinion. I'm sure you're obviously the same opinion as myself.
I think there was, and John Fogarty is writing about it in the Examiner this morning, that he says here they were looking to avoid the silence on it. They were looking to avoid a precedent that they would fear, as he says here, would rock the organisation, that the CCCC acted the way they did last Monday, as in to not say anything publicly. And as John points out, not that it was welcomed by everybody else, but that was kind of the rationale behind it. As you say, and as we discussed a little bit earlier on, there's obviously that grey area between it being Croke's responsibility, but the officials also having to organise that. There's an opportunity here now to fix all this and to put it right. What would you like to see happen?
Well, like, it's very easy. I'll just give you an example. I know I'm looking at a different sport altogether, but if you look at American football, okay, and they have 20 different plays or whatever it is, you were supposed to have whatever amount of players on the pitch. If you have one more or one less, it's a penalty against you straight away. Aren't I correct in saying that? Therefore,
a flag on the field.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do you know what I mean? So, do we go down that road? Like, you have to have the player off before he can start. If the player is still on the pitch, do we create a penalty against the offending team? Do we look at that sort of rationale? Maybe so, because it'll make more teams aware of the situation. I think that might be a way to go, and I can guarantee you, if you do it after 2 or 3 matches, everyone will be aware of it, and it won't happen again.
That speaks to more eyeballs needed in some ways. Paul Ganey was on the show with us yesterday, and he was pointing out the fact that, well, he was talking about rules and things in Gaelic football that he'd like to see changed. He'd like to see more, maybe the 2 referees scenario, which is probably doable at either county level, maybe not so much at club level, resources wise, but you need more eyes. It can't just be on one man or woman.
Yeah, I think we spoke about this before. I think, especially at club level, the problem is, if you bring this in at inter-county level, you're probably going to have to follow it all the way through down to club level. And as you said earlier, Adrian, the biggest problem is resources with referees. There's not probably enough referees at club level anyway, and maybe you might get away with it at inter-county level. But resources is a big issue as regards referees.
Yeah. One of the things that cropped up in the day or two afterwards, certainly being reported, Maurice, was the fact that this wasn't in the referee's report, this incident at the weekend. Look, we're not going to throw the referee under the bus necessarily, but were you surprised that an incident like this wasn't in the referee's report, given, as we said, Malachy O'Rourke for one was gesturing on the sidelines about it?
That's the first that's the first I heard of it now, and I'd say at the moment in time, I'd say that the referee filled out the report as is, but like it's very easy to go back, and it's the same old adage, like we'll wait on the referee's report. Do you know what I mean? So he just filled out his report as is, like, but maybe a little bit surprised it wasn't in it, like.
One of the periphery things that has come out of it as well, I think it was Robbie Brennan after the match pointing out that the substitutions, and we understand this, the substitutions were made for, you know, to run down the clock, which, you know, if you're the team that's 2 points ahead in the Ireland Club final, I totally understand that. Do you know, if I was Robbie Brennan, I'd have done the exact same thing and made, you know, in making a couple of substitutions to bring the clock down. Does it speak to something that needs fixing on that front, Maurice? Like we saw in the Football World Cup recently, the added time being 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes to kind of stamp out that whole area of time wasting, and it's a constant issue and thorn in GAA. Is that something that needs looked at out of last weekend?
Look, the rule is there that it's a minimum. If they say 3 minutes, it's a minimum of 3 minutes. So therefore, when they say a minimum of 3 minutes, if a substitute is made in that time, you're going to add on the time for the substitute. But then what happens, then what comes back is it can bite the referee another way, in that if there's 3 minutes you've played and he adds on an extra minute then because of the substitutes, and a team scores a goal, everyone then turns around and starts going, oh, well, he played an extra minute instead of the 3. So the referee can't win regardless of what happens. But you're right in what you're saying. Are we better off to go down the road of the way the soccer was? Are we better off that if we say a minimum of 3 minutes, and if there is 2 or 3 substitutes in it, then it goes to 4 minutes or whatever the time may be?
Yeah, I think is the soccer adapting soccer is obviously slight sort of, we're slightly allergic to it in the GAA, but that you're not coming on until you come off.
Yes.
Could we just do that?
That's the way. That's probably the way it should be. Like, do you know what I mean?
That makes too much sense, though. For the GAA.
But that's the way it should be, Adrian. Like, you don't start the game until the player goes off and the other player comes on. That's the way it should be. And if the player is walking off or whatever, I'm presuming that's where they get all this extra time in the soccer. Like,
does the referee, like when Shane asked about the report?
It's the only.
Sorry, Maurice, I know there's a slight delay on the line there. I don't know if you have us now. I just wondered about the point about the referee's report, and as to whether, is that just, are you left to your own devices on that? Like, are you talking to when you come off the pitch, are you talking to your assistants, the linesmen, the umpires? Is there anybody around the GAA or Croke Park chatting to you about that, or is that just, are you just doing that on your own?
No. To be fair to Croke Park, like, it's up to the referee and up to the individual to fill out his own match report.
Yeah,
it's the same in any instance. Like, you know, that wouldn't be fair on anybody. So it's up to the referee to fill out the match report and to do whatever he or she needs fit to put in that report.
Yeah, just in the sense of it not featuring, and like you would have assumed if the ref is speaking to, as it was on Sunday, his lines, his assistants, that surely it's somebody. It's just remarkable that it didn't come up, of course, and that might have hastened things on a small bit as well.
I'm interested to hear, Maurice, in terms of the outcomes and the 3 outcomes that we've been hearing all week as possibilities. You know, the fine for Kilmacud, the replay, or the title being stripped from Kilmacud. What do you feel is the fair and most likely outcome? Perhaps they're 2 different things.
Well, sure. Obviously, it's the elephant in the room. The fairest is probably a replay. Without, like, you know what I mean? And it's probably not fair on the likes of Kilmacud, and to be fair, it's not fair on either team. But obviously, in everyone's eyes, the fairest is definitely the replay. And I'm sure yourself and Shane would agree, and Adrian would agree that is the fairest outcome.
Yeah, it's just such a absolute mess for everybody. And there's that's the one thing that I think no matter what side of the fence you're sitting on, that's we can all agree on that. Come here, it's the National League is obviously back this weekend. Are you looking at that now? Because we've had a chat with you obviously a couple of months back about your retirement. Are you looking at that now going, the bit of gras coming out again, and I wouldn't mind if I was on the road this weekend?
I'll be down in Waterford on a hike with my wife on Sunday. That's where I will be on Sunday. So I'm going to get to do the things that I couldn't do for the last 20 years. So I'm starting to enjoy that side of things.
I thought you were about to say I'll be down in Walsh Park watching, and I was like, geez, you haven't left at all. But no, that's much better. Hike's much better.
And keeping an eye on leash. No,
that's a better excuse, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You got to enjoy these times, Maurice. 100%. You've done your shift,
Maurice.
Look, as I said to you before, lads, I enjoyed my time when I was there. I have no regrets, and it's time to move on to something else.
Yeah. Well, look, on that note, we will chat to you again down the track. Thanks a million. Enjoy the hike.
All right, take care, boys. Good luck.
Thanks a million. Maurice Deegan, former inter-county referee, well-respected voice in the game as well, and worth having on this morning. It is 8:41 and you're watching OTB AM, and there's loads of comments coming into us about all sorts of stuff, and do keep those comments coming in, whether it's your dinner party guests or whatever it is, and we'll come to that a little bit later on. John Duggan, good morning to you.
Adrian and Shane, how is the form?
3 dinner party guests, JD. I don't mind flinging this at you now, because we threw it at Ronan O'Gara earlier on, and he off the hoof came up with 10.
Knocked it out of the park.
We're not looking for
10. Are these sporting or
3 sporting guests
or
for,
non-sporting?
For dinner, sporting, that are still alive. Don't have to be still playing, but definitely still with us in every regard.
I can read out some of the comments to give you a moment there, John, because we've had a few. My dinner table will be Michael Jordan, John Daly, Bo Jackson, says Darrow too. Peter Mahoney would have to be dinner party. Security in case anything kicks off. That's a fair point. Someone says John Walters, Roy Keane, Boris Becker.
Just the Walters and Keane thing, I get they'd have a bit of a row about.
Yeah, it's fair.
Boris Becker, is he? Is he still? I mean, I know he's still alive and all that, but is he in a prison or out of prison? In prison. Okay.
He's out of prison.
He's out of prison, is he?
Yes.
Danny Mack says Malachy O'Rourke, Shane Hannon, Usain Bolt. Obviously, Usain will be asked to leave. Fair point. Yeah, leave myself Malachy to have the chats. There's a few decent ones there. It's not an easy one to come up with. I know, John, you'll probably have a good answer for non-sporting guests as well. Rory Larmour, good morning, man. Paul McGrath, Roy Keane, and Ali McCoist. The crack will be mighty.
McCoist is a good shout, yeah.
Yeah, McCoist and Keane, of course, good narrative.
You watching enough time, JD?
No, I mean, my mind is I've probably about 3 million things going on at the moment. So, to be honest, I probably needed a heads up.
Yeah. Well, look, we've been.
Do you have one name, John?
No, I mean,
standouts.
When you have 3 million things going on and you get a curveball, so sometimes you can get a curveball, it works, and sometimes it doesn't. So I don't want to give a stupid answer.
Yeah,
actually, it's something I'd rather think about, to be honest.
We're going to talk about the Barbarians in a minute, but before all of that, the tennis is unfolding.
Yeah, and Stefanos Tsitsipas of Greece is into the Australian Open men's singles final. So a 4-set winner over Karen Khachanov in Melbourne, and he'll now play Novak Djokovic or Tommy Paul. They meet this morning. In terms of the golf, you couldn't make this up. Patrick Reed and Rory McIlroy tied at the top of the Dubai Desert Classic on 6 under par. Shane Lowry level par for his opening round. He's only through 6 holes of it. The other 2 guys are on 6 under in the clubhouse. Man City Arsenal in the FA Cup tonight. 5 points between them in the Premier League. 8 o'clock start at the Etihad.
They go all out for Arsenal, JD, do you think?
I just don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't think it would be a good idea to have a kind of a weakened team and then get thumped 4-0 by City psychologically. So I think that, for example, if Leandro Trossard can play, he should play. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic at the Emirates, the Etihad Stadium tonight with Arsenal on the road. Obviously, we've got the leagues, as you said, back this weekend in Geta Games.
Division 2 floating your boat, John. Dublin, Kildare, Croke Park.
Well, I think it'll be a great thing to go to as a kind of if you want to start maybe transitioning out of a dry January responsibly, and you might have this weekend at Croke Park. Then you might go to the rugby over the next few weeks. You might try and go to the France game. I know you probably try to go, Adrian, being a rugby man. But yeah, I think it's a good thing if you want to get out and about and see a game like Dublin, Kildare, Croke Park won't be full, will it? So I think that it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what type of team Dessie Farrell picks tomorrow evening. And also, I think when I'm reading about all the previews about all the counties, a lot of it is about what counties don't have, as opposed to what counties could do.
Yeah.
So I think Derry winning the Dr. McKenna Cup is a could do. Armagh is a could do. Monaghan is potential could do. Whereas with Kerry, you're seeing, okay, no more, no Clifford's probably for a while.
Well, 10 of the 15 from the All-Ireland final missing for the first week or two.
You know, with Mayo, you're seeing no Mullen, no Keegan. With Galway, they've got injuries. So I think the Ulster teams actually could do quite well in the league this year.
I'm 27 days into my dry January. I'm gonna stick it through for this weekend as well and get
well,
to
that's
February.
I was interested to see JD there saying you could start to transition out of it. I mean, it's still technically January.
You got to hold it. You got to hold out.
How are you feeling?
I feel clarity of thought the last 3 weeks. I have to say, sleeping better, feeling better.
Is it the longest you've ever given it up?
No, I actually did a dry January. It was either last year or the year before, and I did it till the end of March.
Yeah.
Just inadvertently, I planned to do just January and kept it going till the end of March. But you definitely feel better for it.
It's the sleep, I find.
Yeah, sleep is massive.
Adrian, are you on any of these?
No, I'm not. It's not. I don't have enough of a life for it to be a factor for me either way. But I'm definitely not. I actively am dead against any sort of New Year's resolutions.
Or purging.
I'm dead against any kind of a dry January. My only experience in my existence, 45 years on the planet, of giving it up for a little period of time, ended up with going back on it. The first night I went back being an absolute
that's the thing
blowout
as well.
of
waking up in a different country kind of thing.
Well, it was in Australia, but I did also start out in Australia.
Fall into a canal in Amsterdam.
Not in a good exactly not in a good shape. So and like it's a classic old Irish poor attitude to alcohol thing. That's my view on it. But look, it's I'm not I wouldn't for a second discourage people for, if you can, as you say, transition out of it a little bit responsibly at the end.
I think I find myself going to the gym more and going running more. It ties in nicely with.
After a while, you don't miss it. Like the last 3 years, I'm not this year. The last 3 years, I've given it up until.
You did a good chunk, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, the last 3 years, I've given up till April.
Are you doing the same now, or? Are you
probably going to give up till Patrick's Day around that weekend, because Ireland play England that weekend. I wouldn't mind going to it after Cheltenham. So, but I had to go to a function in early January, so I couldn't start from. So I think the last time I had a drink was about the 16th or something. But actually, when if you do have a few beers, you don't miss it after a while.
And look, I feel sorry for publicans during January as well, because it's not an easy month for them. But like, I went to the pub with my mates this week, and they were drinking pints, and I was on the zero pints. So you're still contributing to the economy of the pub, but you're just not drinking your alcohol.
Tell you, if you have a craving, and once again, this all should be responsible, and we want to stress that. But if you do have a craving, a couple of glugs of Heineken Zero or any zero, and you're fine.
Placebo.
It sorts the craving immediately.
Yeah. You're getting a taste of beer.
Well, that's it. But then you can put it down, then you're fine. It's just that.
It's something to have in your hand, I find. I'd hate to be sitting there, with a glass of water or nothing, because I'd be like, well, jeez, what am I?
You could have like a Coke or 7-Up or something.
You actually don't want to hang around. You don't actually want to hang around pubs, because you don't want.
True.
If you're not in the loop of bullshit conversation and nonsense conversation.
If you have a Heineken Zero
you just get bored.
Yeah, completely. If you have a Heineken Zero in a regular Heineken glass, people don't ask you questions. They're like, oh, he's drinking. You don't have to put up with why are you not drinking?
If you're preparing for nonsense conversation now, watching an OTB AM during the week is a good foundation for it. Well, I would say especially this week, but that's my bias coming out.
I've Monaghan Armagh on my schedule tomorrow evening in Castleblaney. Love those smaller grounds under lights during the National League. First game, good local derby. I was born in Armagh, so this game means everything to me.
You are... Really. Charlie Haughey, I've just realised there's not a county in the country that you don't have some sort of an affiliation with.
I just born in a hospital in Armagh, in Newry.
The Hannons of Armagh.
This is it. Hey, but
Newry County Down.
See, no, half of Newry's in Down, half is it. So my older sister was born in the Down side of Newry, and the other three of us were born in the Armagh side of Newry. Two different hospitals, yeah. Newry splitting.
And what decided that?
I don't know. I was born in Daisy Hill Hospital, which is on the Armagh side of the Newry divide. You learn something new every day, lads. Newry's in both. Right. It's more famously in Down, of course, but you've got a bit of Armagh in there as well, straggling the border. But I can't wait for it.
Straggling the border.
Straggling the border, hey. I'm buzzing for this, the National League. I love it every year. Monaghan, of course, the team that have been in Division 1 for the second longest stint after Kerry. 9th year in Division 1. I mean, we just always stay up by the skin of our teeth. Hopefully this year they can do it again. A win in the opening game is important. What are you laughing at?
Colm's cracking himself out there about something or other. God knows. Right.
So 50 years today, 27th of January 1973, the Barbarians team played New Zealand in Cardiff, and there was 4 Irish players on the Barbarians team: Willie John McBride, Fergus Lattery, Mike Gibson and Ray McLaughlin. And then the second minute of the game, this happened.
Almost on the halfway line, Kirkpatrick to Williams. This is great stuff. Phil Bennett covering. chased by Alistair Scone. Brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant. John Williams, Brian Williams, pulling. John Dawes. Great dummy. Tom David, the halfway line. Brilliant by Quinnell. This is Gareth Edwards. A dramatic start. What a score!
If you've never seen it, check it out on social, because the greatest try I've ever seen. I won't see a better one. Obviously, people have their own opinions, but I wish rugby was played. Maybe I'm a relic or ill-informed, but I wish rugby was played like that nowadays, because it was a game of evasion then rather than collision, and it is just breathtaking stuff.
Cliff Morgan.
Yeah.
What a score! He wasn't supposed to be in commentary.
Yeah, Bill McCarron got sick, got the flu or something, and Cliff Morgan, who was an executive, a former Welsh international, was an executive of the BBC at the time, just stepped in. And if I had a few zeros on me, sometimes I do that kind of commentary in a bad way. This is Gareth Edwards! A dramatic start! What a score!
Sorry for anyone driving who just crashed. That's not bad. It's not bad, John.
It's it's so early in the game, as you say,
Yeah.
and it's basically it's Wales, right? With like John Pullen thrown in.
Lads, it's Wales.
That there was like 6 or 7 Welsh players and England's John Pullen thrown in, and as you say, like just the commentary, as so often, the clip is made by the commentary.
Yeah, and the crowd, and like 1973, it's not as advanced as now. Only 4 points for a try. They missed the conversion, which is funny. And it just set the tone for a match that the Barbarians won 23-11.
Phil Bennett tells a great story about, he was one of the players, key players involved in that, and sort of came back towards his own goal line, and he tells a great story about how they had, the Scarlets had played the All Blacks, it might have been the week beforehand, and the All Blacks blindside kept running up but ran too quickly at him, so it was really easy to, he was like, you're coming too quick. If you just slow down, you'd actually get me, but you're running at me too quick. So he'd easily evade him. So he was running back in that game, is famous in the clip, and you can see the blind side coming at him, and he sees him over his shoulder, and he's like, right, well, that'll be grand, because he's going to run too quick and I'll easily run around him. What he doesn't account for in this game is that there's another 5 All Blacks breathing down his neck straight away afterwards. But then he starts to sidestep and fling the ball out, and it's like that sort of over, you know, that those sort of passes, was a Quinnell sort of later in the game, the one hand passes out, just breathtaking skill, as you say at that time.
It's just freedom. It's the pure freedom of it, as you say, the word evade, and it's let's get it out to the wings, let's just go for this, and just the joined up thinking, and the abandon of the whole thing, the loose abandon. It's brilliant stuff. And I think there's a lunch today with about 1,000 people at it. I don't know where it is. I presume it's probably in Wales or something. But Gareth Edwards will be at it today, and I think Willie John McBride's going to be at it. So
yeah, there's a lot of those players and people that have passed away. And
yeah, something like Phil Bennett being one of them. Sometimes we can get involved in other people that are quite cynical about nostalgia. But I do think these things are important things to highlight and to remember, just because it happened in the past. I think knowing your history is important when it comes to sport, and this was one brilliant part of history.
First press conference I ever covered was a pre-Six Nations in a Cardiff City Centre hotel for Wales, just the Wales, you know, the way it wasn't like, it was the entire Six Nations preview press conference with just the Wales team, and it would have been 1997 probably, and Cliff Morgan was there. I presume he must have been working in some sort of a thing, and I spotted my moment to go and have a chat with him and interviewed him about a few various bits and pieces. I didn't realise at that time, you mentioned about he was an executive of the BBC. He was a very high ranking executive. It might have been, in fact, I'd need to double check this, but running the BBC Sport section of it at some point or another. But I remember talking to Rob Howley. I think I must look back in this one as well. Jonathan Davies might have been there. One of my main memories is when I would have been about 19 at that time, and I would have looked about 10 or 11, and one of my main memories would be that unfortunately I've lost that capacity, JD. I do now look my age, unfortunately. Was the Quinnell brothers, not in a we're all having a laugh sort of a way, but in a real shitty sort of a way, taking the mick out of me. They were like, oh, you know, who's this? They were sort of sneering and laughing and trying to get some of their buddies involved in a bit of a chat about it. I don't lie awake at night about it. It was as the great man would say, it was just banter. But it was, that was my memories of it. It was in hindsight at that time, it was on like a college assignment going in to cover a press conference.
You were living in Cardiff.
Yeah, I have a bit of live experience in the field. I never knew at that time what I was actually walking into. You know, in hindsight, it was like the collection of players and stories.
It can be quite intimidating, and I was in the same boat when I started off going to Ireland press conference in 1998 for the, I think it was the Wales game, speaking to Keith Wood, and it was Pat Whelan at the time, and it is quite intimidating. Beautiful segue, by the way, to let you know, folks, that at 1:30 tomorrow we got Brian O'Driscoll, extended interview on the Six Nations Championship, full preview of the tournament, and also his top 5 memories from his own career.
It's mad how that'll be a brilliant show tomorrow. It's mad how the moments like that where he wasn't supposed to be the commentator on the day, it's just little sliding doors. It was the same with Tilsley, that he took over from Brian Moore, and 99 was his first Champions League final, and he's sitting there after 6 minutes or whatever it was, and Basler scores the free kick, and he thinks he's got the commentary wrong because he says deflected and in. So he's there. He said he was sitting there for the entire game going, my first Champions League final, Bayern are going to win 1-0, the English team haven't won, and I've got the only goal wrong. I've called it wrong.
Nobody remembers
didn't
that.
Deflect. And then, of course, the rest happens, and Tilsley's most famous moments happen in injury time. So it's funny how it happens. Similar stories, it can work out for commentators sometimes.
Yeah, and also, as interesting you said about Cliff Morgan, David Attenborough was the controller of BBC Two in the late 60s, and he brought snooker, Eurosport,
colour,
to the TV.
He's to blame.
So he's to blame.
Thank you, David Attenborough.
That's your little nugget of information today.
1:00 tomorrow on Off the Ball News Talk. Jelly.
Thank you.
Thanks
so much.
Enjoyed that. Thanks a lot. It is 5 to 9. There are plenty of comments still coming into us about all sorts of different stuff. Fergus Kyo says if Adrian did a dry January, he'd have to also give up cheese, and that'd be very unfair.
Yeah, that'd be tough now. Would you rather give up wine or cheese?
I can't. It's not that I can't have one without the other.
Oh, fair.
I find it hard to have cheese without wine, although I can definitely have wine without the cheese, if you get me.
We should have like a middle class siren that plays.
What's middle class about cheese?
I can't have cheese without wine.
I didn't say it in
I didn't quite say it like that.
Shame, but thank you.
No, but it's a fair. I understand. It's like having steak and red wine. Some things pair well together.
And I don't need to make any apologies for that. It's
fish and white wine.
Cheese and wine is as old as time.
Oh, did you mean to rhyme that?
I didn't, but it's come out that way, so let's keep rolling with it.
All right, I love that.
Dennis Ryan says Michael Verdi, Grania Walsh and Marcelo Bielsa.
Offaly and Argentina.
You also need a fourth seat for translator.
That's fair. Yeah.
Now,
sorry, Grania speaks Italian. Marcelo probably speaks Italian. So
the slot we've all been waiting for. Sure. It's around the world with Shane.
It's the new slot. Are we still calling it new? I don't know if we are, but everyone in the comments for the next while, for the next maybe 5-10 minutes, however long we decide to take this. If you've anything negative to say, just don't bother saying it.
3 or 4 minutes.
3 or 4 minutes. I've got a minute on each topic, do I? Fill this slot with praise so we can keep it going. So I have reasons in production meetings to say, see, those 3 people said something nice about it, Adrian. So I know this doesn't make you feel good, Adrian, to kind of have some positive stories on a Friday. I know it's tough heading into a weekend to look at the world with a glimmer of positivity, but that's what I'm going to do, folks. I'm going to bring some nice stories. They're not always nice stories, but most of them tend to be. We're heading first on Around the World this week to Miami, Florida, United States of America. This is a bit of a nice story. So there was a young fan from Argentina who was left devastated. I know, Adrian, you were watching the basketball last week. Jimmy Butler, a name for all the Irish fans of the NBA who'll be familiar with him. He was supposed to be playing in a match on Tuesday night, and this young fan had flown 4,405 miles, as his poster said. The Heat were taking on the Boston Celtics. This was on Tuesday night, and Jimmy Butler was ruled a late scratch due to a back injury. He couldn't play. As you can imagine, the kid who had travelled all the way to just see his hero Jimmy Butler play was left devastated. So we have a clip here from NBA on TNT that highlights just how sad this young lad was at finding out that Jimmy Butler couldn't play.
On the internet right now, he finds out that his favorite player, Jimmy Butler, not going to play. His sister, they're both from Argentina. You could tell they're crushed. Well, there's 2 silver linings. Number 1, this is the power of TNT Tuesdays.
Yes, it is.
Got him down there on the court, met Gabe Vincent, got some gifts. Thank you for the gifts. And Jamal, you have talked to Jimmy Butler.
I talked to Jimmy Butler. Obviously, he's really, really sick, and he couldn't make it to the game. He was watching the game on TNT, and he saw the kid, and he felt really, really bad. So he has the kid's information, and let's just say the kid will be even happier than he would have if he played. So I'm really, really excited. That's the Jimmy Butler I know.
Yeah. I mean, so he gets down to the courtside. He gets his little few bits of memorabilia and merchandise. So you're thinking, no, this is quite nice. He's flown all the way from Argentina, not completely for naught. Himself and his sister get the jersey, get the basketball. Jamal Crawford saying that Butler had a surprise for the child as well. So we weren't sure what that other surprise would be. No, he actually saw a brilliant game. So the NBA All-Star, Bam Adebayo, had 30 points and 14 rebounds. Look at that photo. This is the following day. Jimmy Butler meets the kid on the Wednesday, the day after the match, and he surprises him on court and made it up to him. So this child's name is Felipe. Not only, look at him, he's getting a tour of the Heat facilities with his sister, and his entire family were there as well. Some lovely moments. Jimmy Butler, his hero. They say, Adrian, always, what is the phrase? Don't always meet your heroes, because you could be left disappointed. I don't know who your sporting hero was growing up. I had a moment similar to Felipe there, where outside Healy Park in Oma, met Michael Donlan, the former Galway player, who was playing for my dad's club, Dunmore McHale's, and I just idolised the man. And I remember meeting him outside the team bus and getting an autograph and a photo and all the rest, and being completely overawed, similar to how young Felipe was there. Sometimes you meet your heroes and I think you're left disappointed. I don't have many examples of that. Roy Keane was one where completely point blank ignored me when I was about 7 or 8 at the United game over in Old Trafford in 2001. Have you had any instances of that where you were either left overjoyed or completely disappointed by meeting a hero?
Not really. Like, it's not that I'm entirely joyless, but I don't tend to.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. Not really, to be honest. I don't have anything. I remember going to Everton play at Lone Town when I was a kid, and I was an Everton fan at that time. And I remember going to the game. Neville Southall played. Kevin Sheedy was there. It was Tony Cotty. Unbelievable team at that time. Not so much now. And getting loads of autographs and stuff. Positive sort of experience about it. It does strike me that kid is going to kick off a spate. You can be absolutely certain of people,
sign holding
kids going to games now where they know a player is probably not going to be involved with I can't wait to see X at the game today, and then for them not to turn up. But lo and behold, we're going to give you all these jerseys and slightly cynical view, but
a little bit cynical, but understandable. The Everton fandom stopped then?
Yeah.
Over time, just naturally.
Yeah, I just stopped supporting any of them because it was just
fickle to you.
Well, it just, I understood at a certain point that it meant nothing to me, and I was just doing it because my mates were doing it, and I would watch any game of football at any time. I just have no affiliation.
Okay, that's fair. No, but I think that the overall point I was trying to make with that piece is, do meet your heroes. Don't be afraid to meet your heroes. And he saw a great game. Miami were 10 points down in the fourth quarter, 15-0, and in run late in that fourth quarter to win and beat the Boston Celtics 98-95. So Felipe was a good luck charm in the end as well. And he got to meet Jimmy Butler. That's the first story, a positive story. Let us know in the comments. Have you ever met your hero, your sporting hero? Have you been left disappointed? Have you been left absolutely over the moon? Just a thought. Our next story in Around the World this morning, on this Friday morning with myself and Adrian, is heading to Melbourne, Australia. Bit of a strange one. Novak Djokovic's father being filmed. So you'll see the photo on screen there. That are a number of fans in the crowd at the Australian Open in Melbourne, and the gentleman in the black t-shirt with the white Z painted in front of it, which is quite clearly a symbol supporting Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That symbol is on a lot of the Russian tanks that have invaded Ukraine as well. It's a bit of a mad one because this photo here has been doing the rounds. It's not very clear, but again, another person with a black Z t-shirt, clearly a pro-Russian t-shirt. It was a pro-Russian demonstration in Melbourne near the Australian, and the gentleman on the left, that is Novak Djokovic's father. So this is the reason why this is kind of doing the rounds. And there's all these Russian flags. There's flags bearing the image of Vladimir Putin as well. The Ukraine ambassador calling all this a disgrace. Djokovic had just booked his place in the tournament semi-final with a thumping of Andrei Rublev at Rod Laver Arena. This was on Wednesday night. Then after the match, this group of fans unfurling the Russian flags, which are banned, by the way, at Melbourne Park, near the stadium, chanting pro-Russian chants, pro-Putin chants as well. Tennis Australia saying 4 people, quote, revealed inappropriate flags and symbols and threatened security guards. Police were called. They were ejected from Melbourne Park. And then video later posted to a pro-Russian Australian YouTube account showed Djokovic's father, as we saw there from the screen grab, his father Serjan posing with a man holding that Russian flag bearing President Putin's image. He also has the black t-shirt, as I said, with the Z on it. The video caption, Novak Djokovic's father makes bold political statement. Serbian tennis reporters confirming that man on the left was Djokovic's father. The Melbourne Age newspaper reporting he said in Serbian, quote, "Long live Russia." Spectators, as we say, banned from having Russian or Belarusian flags at the Grand Slam. This was, of course, after the Ukraine ambassador to Australia and New Zealand demanded action when they were seen among the crowd last week. Russian embassy heading back as well. And look, all these flags just leave a bad taste in the mouth. There's a Ukrainian player as well, Lesia Tsurenko, who was defeated in the first round, who tweeted, "No words to say." A lot of the players have hit back as well. Ukrainian former player Alex Dolgopolov, currently fighting in the war, asked on Twitter, this guy will get banned for life, at least for all Australian events, right? And tagged at Australian Open as well. And there are people of the other persuasion. Simeon Boykov, who runs the YouTube channel, who posted the footage, has urged Russian supporters to descend on Melbourne Park to protest the flag ban. He says, "This is about honour and dignity now. This is an attack on honour and dignity. This has got nothing with the war. The Russian Empire has had its flag banned. Well, guess what, Tennis Australia? Good luck when the Empire strikes back." Bit of a Star Wars reference there from the gentleman. And Tennis Australia saying on Thursday it would continue to work with security to enforce entry rules, without really saying they were going to directly address the incident involving Djokovic's father. Look, should be said, this has nothing to do with Novak. It's his father, of course, who's involved in this incident. But certainly left a bad taste in the mouth.
So the positive stories have taken a slight
tangent,
detour.
Well, sometimes it's a story that we probably and possibly should have covered during the show during the week. And maybe bypassed it for time reasons.
No, the stories nobody had time to cover. Slot.
I think a lot of people would acknowledge that was a story worth covering.
No, I think it's certainly worth pointing out. By the way, just a piece of news that is coming through in the last little while from French Rugby. Vice Chairman Bernard Laporte has resigned as president of the French Football Association. He's obviously facing corruption charges and separately been questioned in relation to tax fraud. He did step aside from his position at World Rugby in recent weeks as well, but that's just a bit of breaking news from France.
Adrian getting involved in around the world.
No, that's an actual story that's worth reporting.
Taking us to France and around the world. Thank you, Adrian, for that detour. We've got 5 stories today, and Adrian's brought us the third one by surprise. We're heading now to Africa, to Cameroon. On around the world. Cameroon sealed its qualification for the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations Under-17s tournament. They beat the Republic of Congo 2-0 12 days ago. But the squad which won that match, unrecognisable from the one initially selected for the event, because 21 of the 30-man original group were disqualified for failing age eligibility tests. Now, how do they find out their ages? Well, it's not quite as simple. It's in some countries in Africa, like Cameroon, the birth cert system is a little bit rudimentary. They're heading towards using digital certs now. But they've done MRI scans to determine bone age and then ejected 21 of the 30 players from the squad. 11 of the replacements drafted into the squad then failed age tests because they were deemed too old to play in the qualifiers. So Samuel Eto'o, who's the president of the Cameroon Football Association at this stage, he had decided to introduce these age tests. And look, we can understand why some of these players decide to lie about their age. They rely on football. A lot of them come from poor families and poor backgrounds. They need the money. They want to reduce their ages so they can play for longer periods in the game and make more money. It's not a new phenomenon. This has happened before, Adrian. Alf Ramsey, the manager, led England to its solitary World Cup in 1966. He changed his date of birth. The Morning Star reporting it was so he could get a professional contract as a player after World War II. Brazilian Carlos Alberto, he was 25 when he won the FIFA World Youth Championship with Brazil. Not that Carlos Alberto, by the way. This was in 2003. That was a tournament for players under the age of 20, and it turned out afterwards he was 25. He wasn't just over the age group, he was well over it. He says it was a chance for me to make a living. I was hungry. And infamously, former Newcastle, current Marseille and DRC defender Chancel Mbemba was probed by the world governing body FIFA for allegedly having 4 different birthdays. In an interview with the Mirror, he claimed to take bone tests to verify his own age and was eventually ruled to be born on the day that he claimed by FIFA's disciplinary committee. It is an aspect of cheating in some ways. The record keeping, as I said, Malawi as well have recently carried out tests on its own players ahead of its qualifiers, had to expel some from the squad. That was from but I was curious here as to how do they know from the bone tests what age people are, and the science here is actually fascinating. So as a way of verifying a player's age, the Confederation of African Football, CAF, adopted the use of MRI scans. So the scan scans a player's wrist, examining the growth plate before grading it from 1 to 6, Adrian. Don't fall asleep just yet. Grade 6 means a player's growth plate is completely fused to the bone, which typically happens around the age of 18 or 19. However, some committees explain this MRI method is not an assessment of someone's exact age. It's not.
You've not. You haven't suddenly wandered onto Lyric FM.
Stay with me.
We're still with you.
Stay with me. The bone fuses at age 18 and 19, but it's not cast in stone. It is still possible for players who are over the age of 17 to pass as eligible to play. The scan works for boys only, as the wrist growth plate development is different to that of girls.
I have to say, I don't think this is ever going to reach such depths. I would hope it would never reach such depths as that. Amazing explanation.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Wow.
See, you mustn't have liked science or biology in school, Adrian, did you?
Well, at least when I stepped into the classroom, I knew that I wasn't there for entertainment, and I had similar sort of feelings about this lot, Shane.
If someone wants to let me know in the comments that you found the bone density scans and MRIs interesting, even if you didn't, you can let us know. Just so I can, in the post-meeting, the post-show meeting, explain to Adrian that we will be doing this slot again, and no one is going to get rid of it. Do you want to finish on a positive story, Adrian?
I just want to finish.
Yeah, okay. Well, we will finish in just a moment. Thanks for your enthusiasm this morning. Much appreciated as always. We're heading to Scotland, bonny old Scotland, to Darvel. I have done some research on Darvel during the week because I hadn't been familiar with them. It was a David versus Goliath story in the Scottish Cup last weekend, I think it was, as Darvel, little old Darvel, 6th or 7th tier, I think. They're in the West of Scotland Premier Division. They're way down. They beat Aberdeen by 1-0. This was a result that has of course thrown the tenure of Waterford's Jim Goodwin at Aberdeen into a little bit of question. So he was already under pressure. They had a 5-0 defeat by Hearts at Tynecastle the week before. 1 win in 9 games. He's being defiant. He says he's the man to turn things around. But this result, when you're losing to a team like Darvel, I don't mean a team like Darvel, but they're clearly underdogs. They're going to play Falkirk in the competition's next round. Andy Robertson, Liverpool's Andy Robertson and Scotland's Andy Robertson, one of the people who tweeted their praise, a few clapping emojis on Twitter for the Darvel team. The team talk that he gave before the match in the dressing room to the Darvel players, you're thinking afterwards, of course it's going viral now because they ended up winning the match. We wouldn't have seen this footage otherwise. But BBC Sports Scotland tweeted it out, and the footage from the Darvel manager Mick Kennedy to the players before the game against Aberdeen would leave you believing in anything. You'll feel like wanting to go onto the pitch here yourself and watch this speech, and it will become apparent as to why Darvel went out and won the game.
The next 90 minutes will probably be the most important 90 minutes in your career. All right? I read up the day that the average man lives to about 77. Right? 40 million minutes in his life. All right? I'm asking you to give your absolute utmost for the next 90. 90 minutes at 40 million. Right? That's all I'm asking for. So when that whistle goes, be prepared to give everything you've got for each other, for yourself, for your family. Be proud of what you achieved and be proud of what we're going to achieve. Because I promise you right now, we can win this. But it's about belief. That belief starts inside yourself, then it spreads through one another. But you must believe. People talk about underdogs. I'm telling you right now, we're no underdogs. I do not believe that. I've never believed it till the draw's been done. Because I know what's in this change room. I know what's in your hearts. I know when we're together, we can achieve it and we set our mind to it. But you've got to be hungry. You've got to have the desire in your belly. You've got to draw strength for the crowd. You've got to drop for one another. When you need to find that extra yard, that extra bit of oxygen, then look around about you. Look to your brothers. Look to your family. Let's look to the next round. Let's go. Go on.
I'm ready to go. I must say, I watched that during the week and I thought he's going to walk into a job somewhere further up the leagues soon.
Because of this clip?
Well, because of the clip.
And the win, of course.
The way he communicated it was quite Brendan Rodgers-esque. Do you remember that? Liverpool, you do it for your family. Yeah. Remember that? Do you remember that speech?
Character.
When he was at Liverpool. And because he's got such a strong Scottish accent, I think that's going to be the biggest thing in his favour.
It was fantastic. I was watching that clip yesterday and I nearly stood up out of my seat and said, I'm going to the gym and I'm going to do something. It would put you in a motivational type of mood.
Not saying that has won me over with the slot, but if we get more of that would have less bone marrow density analysing stuff and more of that'd be good.
One for the science. Just to finish off on a couple of the comments that have come in. Is it true Adrian's hero is the sommelier in the ODS? That's from Darrow O'Toole. Quite possibly, quite probably. Other people commenting on this as well. If Carlos Alberto was overaged, says Fergus Keogh, should all games he played in not be replayed? I'm not sure what you're getting at there, Fergus, but I do know. In fact, Des Crosdale, when I asked for comments, said, no point, you don't reply, boys. Des, how are you? How are things?
Owen Scully just before that.
Good morning. Owen Scully, load of Zs.
Yeah.
Just
sleeping emoji.
Adrian, your burner account on YouTube has clearly been busy. But yeah, no, that I'm
when
glad
is
people
Around the
got
World
over.
Asks Owen a little bit later on.
No,
and,
forget about it. It's over now. But you know what, folks, it will be back. That was Around the World.
That was Around the World, and it's finished, and there's no sting to finish it with, so that's where we're going to end it. It's the most fitting possible finish for that item.
You got a smile down the screen and a little wink, maybe. Yeah, fair enough.
What are we doing?
Sean Dyche.
Oh, I have to look at my screen. Sean Dyche has been about to be appointed as the next Everton manager.
Yep.
This is good news.
Brilliant. Brilliant for everyone involved in terms of media, and someone who's exciting and good in press conferences.
I think also very good for Everton fans. I think they'll be enthused, excited, believing now, like that he can go in and turn things around, because obviously an attitude is kind of not their only issue, but certainly one of the issues. And you would hope that Sean Dyche has a way to play them out of it, and from an attitude point of view, give them a bit of a, what was your man's name, the Darvel manager?
Mick Kennedy.
I'd say he can Mick Kennedy a bit of life into them.
I mean, when you see their position in the table was at 19th, you're like, yeah, Dyche is the man for the job. Bielsa doesn't really, as we said, take jobs in the middle of the season. He's expected to be appointed, Sky Sports reporting today. Bielsa and Dyche both held talks with the club yesterday, with the former spotted in London for negotiations with the Everton board. That was Bielsa, but it seems the former Burnley manager has won the race. And the Everton hierarchy wanted Lampard's successor to be appointed by today, and it appears that's
I think if you weren't sure about the Lampard departure, this is a good net result. I think you're happy if you're an Everton fan this morning.
Yeah, I'd be delighted if I was an Everton fan with Dyche.
Do get your comments if you are an Everton supporter watching this morning. Fire them into us. Here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio between now and the end of today. We're going to have, I presume we'll have a football kickoff at 5:30. Well, there'll be no football kickoff today because it's the FA Cup, so that'll be back to you next week. And then in the meantime, to keep you going, we'll have Ogie Moran at 1 o'clock, who's the subject of OTB Gold. We'll have Mount Rushmore, Cavan are in the hot seat from 3, and then Jason McAteer and Mark Lawrenson interview each other in Up Close and Personal from 4, and at 6 Keith Andrews in conversation with Philly McMahon from a couple of years back. And a reminder as well, OTBAM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. You can follow OTB across all of our social channels. Subscribe to our OTB podcast network for all the very best and latest in sports content. During the ads here, you're going to hear a clip from the latest episode of the Football Pod, the Tommy Rooney, Paddy Andrews and James Donoghue pod, where the lads spoke about the year that Mayo's Tommy Conroy could have ahead of him. The Football Pod is in partnership with AIB, proud sponsor of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. You can check out #TheToughest for more on all of that. We're back after that addressing the burning question of the morning that we floated out. We will finally be able to answer it for you. Dominating the comments this morning. Back after these.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
OTB Sports Rugby.
He was trying so hard. Every kick off the boot, it was like he had no timing in the world. They were just like dead ducks flying across the air. And
subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
I am excited to see Tommy Conroy at Mayo.
Yes.
I think everyone, not just Mayo, obviously Mayo supporters, but I think it was a cruel blow for Mayo in particular, but for him.
Yeah.
Breakout year in 2021, All-Star, an exciting player to watch. And it was this time last year. Sigerson game, season gone.
Yeah.
Unbelievable blow to Mayo. They'd obviously go on and lose Ryan O'Donoghue as well. It was just a bad
disaster.
Everything that could have went wrong for them. I think he'll have a massive role for Mayo this year. I would love to see, just purely just to see how this would work, if you got Ryan O'Donoghue, Killen O'Connor back at his sharpest as he can be. I know there's a lot of miles on the clock, but if he can get back to somewhere near his best, and Tommy Conroy inside, those three guys in the full forward line playing off each other. Killian's an unbelievably smart player, so he can bring the other guys into it. That's what Mayo are going to need if they're going to have any say on this. But I just think the way Conroy plays, he's buzzing around the place. He's all action. And I want to see, can he kick on from a brilliant year in 2021? He's lost the season, so I'm no doubt he's mad for road. So I'm excited to see him.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
19 minutes past 9. That slurping that you hear in the background is Colm having rejoined us with a nice cup of Braeburn coffee.
Braeburn coffee. What's the read?
Enjoy a nice coffee from Abbott and Applegreen store nationwide near you. Delicious.
Very good.
It's lovely.
So this
Official
segment
sponsor.
Official
segment sponsors it,
coffee
as
partner
does Gillette.
Off the ball. Colm, good morning to you. Kathleen, welcome.
Good morning.
Shane, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here again.
And for everybody who's still with us after our last item, welcome to you as well. We've had a lot of comments. Colm has described it as dominating
miserable
comments
git,
box
you know
this
that.
morning.
Miserable git.
You got to call it like it is. You got to. What's John Maxson say?
Friday, like come on.
Tell it like it is.
That's what I'm after doing.
So yeah, the comments have been dominated by lots of things today, including people's lists of the random question that we threw out at the top of the show. Who would you have current, alive sports people globally at your dinner table? 3.
2.
2.
1. Oh, I thought you were doing countdown. Right.
Lift off.
Yeah, well, look, we want to turn this into a segment, folks, to end the week, and we want to bring you a topic. So this is the one that we had today. And the comments have been alive. Well, can I just say, your comments have been very good lately, everybody out there.
Yeah.
Keep them coming. Like, there's loads and loads. We like that, because we're going to read them out if they're nice. We'll read them
Makes
out.
our job easier as well.
Yeah.
So please
You can just
keep
talk
them
about
coming.
whatever you bring up in the comments.
Genuinely great.
Have
So
you,
thanks for that.
as the producer of the show, so having said all that, I presume you've collated some of them there, have you?
Well, just like yourself, like I have them open here now, but some of the suggestions, you see, the problem is that some of your suggestions out there are actually so good that it does, I fear, going to influence people's decisions here. So again, the criteria, 3 people, 3 sports people, they have to be alive, but they can be retired if you want, so it can be anyone. The camaraderie has to be there, so it's not just your 3 heroes, because there might not be any buzz around the table. You need a bit of that. And who in your mind would pay for the dinner? So.
Oh, I didn't realise that last ring.
Yeah, I threw that in.
Well, the
there,
venue, Rogers opened up the whole can of worms about venue.
And where would you have it?
Yeah, it's quite important,
You
I
know?
think. Yeah.
So I think with the man's talking there, he's in a bit of momentum after Around the World with Hannon. I think we should start with Shane.
Pressure's on here. I've come up with 2 little dinner parties, both a bit different.
I'm taking the Ronan O'Gara rules.
Yeah. No, I haven't done. Yeah, what did he do? 8 or 9 or 10? I haven't included my. Oh, sorry. Am I at this dinner as well? Am I the 4th person?
It's you plus 3, because otherwise, what is it?
going to organise the dinner for it.
So there's just a camera on it.
Yeah,
you just live stream it just for yourself.
Okay, so I'm at the dinner as well. First pick, Alex Ferguson. Lots to talk about, lots to get into, and while he's still around, I'd like to pick his brain. I don't mean that.
A little bit morbid there.
I don't mean that in a morbid sense, but I mean, it's like, when you get the recorder out with your grandparents and you're like, do you know what? Let's get some of these stories down. Alex Ferguson has obviously put his stories into print, into multitude of interviews across the decades, but I'd like to hear it from the horse's mouth, to excuse the horse pun, Rock of Gibraltar, etc. I would love to sit down with Alex Ferguson in a dinner setting. I think a couple of glasses of red wine as well.
You better have Roy Keane also at this.
I don't have Roy Keane because I've thought about the dynamic. I don't want an awkward dinner. I want to enjoy. I want to be leaving that dinner feeling blessed to be alive and feeling that our place in this universe, floating around in a ball of rock through space, means something. I'd have Rory McIlroy as my second voice at this dinner.
Good shout.
Rory's a Manchester United fan, I'm pretty sure. He is well able to speak his mind. He strikes me as a cultured man, learned on a number of topics, not just golf. I don't want us to sit there for hours and talk about football or Manchester United or golf or Patrick Reed. I want to talk about other things, things that matter in the world. Do you know, they both seem like philosophical gentlemen. I know Alex Ferguson has spoken about Michael Collins and Padraig Pearse and James Connolly and all these Irish patriots. He's a read man, a learned man, and McIlroy strikes me as the same, who would get involved in these conversations. And the fact that he's a United fan as well is my reason for putting him second. Third guest in that particular dinner party is Park Ji-sung. So
now we've gone from the sublime to the ridiculous.
Hold on. Let me clarify this. Park Ji-sung is one of Alex
He'll have a 4th guest, Lee Keegan.
5th Malachy O'Rourke.
We'll get there. But Park Ji-sung was one of Alex Ferguson's favourite players of all time. A workhorse, someone who I think would bring to the dinner party some South Korean cuisine, which I've never tried.
Do they actually have to cook as well?
No, they don't have to cook, but I think he would bring a certain aspect of Asian food to the picture here.
There's more of a potluck or something, is it?
Yeah, potentially. But Park is one of those people who is so pleasant, is so happy with life. He's a happy-go-lucky character. Rory would obviously be in awe of both of these lads. Rory being a Manchester United fan, he'd be in the same boat as me, where we're all kind of fanboying over each other. But I also think Park and Alex Ferguson would appreciate Rory's talents in the world of golf. That's my first three. My second three.
What? How many dinners do you have?
Let's go around the room first.
Go on.
And if we have time, like as Ronan O'Gara points out on YouTube here, Shane's head's gone, and I'm with you. He started off so well,
he's gone,
and then he just took an awful.
Don't be jealous. Go on.
Trip south.
Yeah.
You're driving this, are you?
I am.
Come on.
So when I was doing this, it was weird. I found that like managers were coming to my head a lot more. Like some of them were former players as well, but I don't know, there was something about the managerial quality that really stuck out in my head. So my first one was Emma Hayes, Chelsea manager, because I've listened to her talk a few times and I've been to a few like in-house non-media events with her, and she's just so interesting, and I'd love to just sit with her. And she's good crack as well, which I enjoy. You know, she'll have a bit of banter.
As Emma Byrne says, she gets the Irish way, doesn't
exactly,
she? So
exactly. And also at the weekend, Chelsea-Liverpool was called off because of the ice, and she offered to buy everyone hot dogs that came to the next match. So dinner would be on her. For that sole reason, because I think people costed it up, and it would have cost about 18 grand to buy everyone hot dogs at King's Meadow. So, you know, we were going for the fancy dinner. Then my second one, I was torn in this one. So my two options, was two tennis options, Colm, you'll be happy to hear, was either Billie Jean King or Venus Williams. Because I covered Wimbledon, and I was at a few press conferences with Venus Williams, and her humour is so dry, but she's been through so much as well, so I just think she'd have really, really good stories. But then Billie Jean King is just an icon, and I just really want to sit down with her. And actually that one time I covered Wimbledon, I was covering it with my friend Tom Hamilton, and he told me there's a pub in Wimbledon called the Fox and Hound, where a lot of people who cover go, and a lot of the tennis players turn up there too. And he told me the year before, so it was 2020 when I covered it, so it was COVID, everything was a bit weird. He walked into the pub and Billie Jean King was sitting there, and he sat down with her and drank pints all night, and she was great crack. And I was like, can't believe you're telling me this now, because I'm not going to get to see Billie Jean King this year. But yeah, I think I'd probably go with her. And then my third one, I was also torn between either Arteta or Raj.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I just feel like Raj and Emma Hayes would be such an interesting like meeting of like brilliant minds.
I get you're leaning towards Arteta, but he not just bore the arse off you.
Well, I don't know, because I think people have this perception that Arteta is really boring, but like when you look at a lot of his, like say the videos that came out after the Amazon documentary and any of the clips, like you see him on the sidelines and stuff, and everyone's given off this year that he's like, oh, he's too whatever on the sideline. He looks like he's passionate. He doesn't mind a bit of cursing, a bit of, you know, having crack with people. So yeah, I don't know. I think
you want to talk Arsenal with him anyway, right? So
that's true. And obviously by this stage we'll have won the Premier League, so you know it'll be a nice celebration. Emma Hayes herself worked at Arsenal before, so you know she could join in. Billie Jean King would just be sitting there happy out.
Billie Jean King's a great shout. I listen to the tennis podcast. There's 3 tennis journalists talk about tennis every week, and one of them has a dog called Billie Jean. Billie Jean King got wind of this, met them, and recorded a podcast with them in their house.
Incredible.
That's the type of people. Wow. That's the type of people she is.
Well, so there's this our shout out to Billie Jean King. Please come over to Ireland, especially if she's going to Wimbledon this year. Come on the show. We'll bring you out for dinner. You don't have to pay. I'll pay. It's fine.
I was thinking more we need to get a dog called Tom Brady or like...
Billie Jean's a great name for a dog. Billie Jean is not my mother.
We do need a dog called Ultimate Running Order, all right? We get an incredible guest by guest. That list is very strong.
I like that list.
Venus Williams is a great, I was going to curse there, great shout. She's fascinating. She has this kind of nonchalance about her, doesn't she?
She is like
wise beyond her years.
Yeah, I don't know if this is necessarily the right comparison, but she has like the same sort of quality as someone like Eddie Jones has, in the sense that she doesn't care. If you ask her a question and she doesn't care for it, she will tell you she doesn't care for it. And there were so many times in the press conferences with her where she was asking, and to be fair, they weren't great questions, and she was just looking at the person and she wouldn't say anything. She'd just look at them until someone else asked a question or the moderator tried to move it on quickly, which is fair enough. I mean, she's been through so much, especially with different parts of the media over her career, and she's had to put up with a lot. So if I was in her position, I totally understand why you'd just be like, I couldn't care less about your stupid questions anymore.
If you were in that situation with Venus Williams and you asked her a question that she didn't care for, would you prefer that approach where it's just silence and staring, or Why did you ask me that question?
Oh, I think probably silence and staring, because if they ask you why do you ask that question, you actually have to respond and give a decent answer. I don't know if I'd be like smart enough to come up with something in the moment, or else if I would just be like, I'm sorry, Venus, I love you.
Yeah.
Like I've had it before when I've been in press conferences and like you ask Mourinho or something a question and you can just feel the eyes staring back at you, and it feels like it's about 10 minutes, it's probably only like 5 seconds, but you're just like, oh no, what's he going to say? Yeah. Eddie Jones is the same. He was particularly terrifying because he'd take down like a couple of journalists just before you, and then it'd be your turn up next, and you're like, is my question stupid? Someone actually just asked my question, right, so it's all fine.
And tell me this, do you have a favourite interviewee in the press conferences that you've covered? A surprise one maybe, actually, that you didn't expect to be so giving?
That's a good question, actually. No, I've probably had it definitely outside of press conferences more than in press conferences, because like the answers are generally quite quick and the questions tend to be quite formulaic. Emma Hayes is good because generally you can get a bit of crack out of her, or she'll just come up with some like ridiculous analogy for something and everyone's sitting there scratching their heads going, is she actually being serious, or is she pulling her leg with this whole thing? But yeah, I think a lot of the time the people who surprise me more are like, if you're interviewing like say family members or something of a sports person and you just get a really good interview. Like there's a special interview coming out soon that I was over in Bristol filming for, and we were talking to an Irish player's mum, and she was just so articulate, so passionate about her kid, and like I enjoy those sort of things probably more than the press conferences, because you know that's where sports people get their passion from. That's the atmosphere they were bred in.
I like those picks.
Yeah, that's strong. Adrian, all up against you here now after that. Two very wildly different choices. Wildly different choices.
I haven't had much time to think about this. You sort of
you've the same amount of time as everyone else did.
I know, but like you're sort of involved in like not being able to take her off the ball for the last.
I'd say Adrian probably wants to pick 16 guests, and even though
I don't really, and I would like to give him more time. I will say that, but I did take her casting thing slightly seriously in that like I just wanted to make sure that there was like a good dynamic around there.
Yeah, that's important.
So I went for Kelly Harrington because I think she's a bit of a buzzer, and I think there isn't, you made a point about the awkward conversation. You don't need to be like, you know the way sometimes you're like, oh, I have to spend a bit of time now in the car with this person, or I have to spend a bit of time with somebody you're not sure, so you put a bit of advanced thought into talking points, your own little talking points, the internal monologue.
Proper journalist.
I'm putting it out there now, and the assumption that everybody else does this, right? And yeah, so but I don't think you'd need to think about that too deeply, because I think Kelly would have you covered. I think there's not going to be any awkward silence. Yeah. And even if that happens, she's going to be the one that goes, she points at it, and we have all a bit of crack about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's a legend, so we'll go with Kelly Harrington. I'm going to go with Pep Guardiola.
Ooh.
Because I think that he'd bring something totally different to the party. He'd be obviously a man of more years, more experience, very different career path. Kind of great chat about the Premier League, great chat about the heady days of Barcelona, all the great players he's managed. He's also a way more intense character. So I think there'll be a nice bit of a vibe there. I think they'd actually get on.
I was going to say, I'd love to know how they would interact with each other, or like what they would talk about.
And then the last character I have in there would be Shane Lowry, because I think that
that's strong.
I think that like there's a bit of crack going on. He seems very interested in other people, so I think that he'd be like peppering Pep with a few good questions. He'd have plenty to ask about Kelly and get involved in the conversation. So that's kind of what I think. There'd be a load of sort of first reserves. I was thinking about like Paul O'Donovan would be a really interesting, quirky, different person to have. Ruisha Littlejohn.
Colm's got it over there.
Absolutely.
I had Ruisha as someone that would be great.
She'd just be crack.
Yeah.
So I think she has to be consideration. And Gary O'Toole is... I've made this point before, but as soon as we get our act together as a country and come up with some sort of a proper national award system from a sports point of view, he's top of the list of people who need to be elected, whatever you're having yourself.
What about Mal O'Kelly? You're a big fan, aren't you?
I'd always have Big Mal, yeah. Big Mal is a given. So apart from Roy Keane, who are your other two?
I'm getting texts here from people that I know who are trying to preempt my shouts, you know.
One of them is fairly obvious.
Is number one.
No, come on now. Do you know, I was humming high over this now, but I'm going to go with the following, right? And relax, Willie, when I say this. Just relax.
Well, there's going to be
okay?
Cork names left, right and centre
Just
here.
relax.
You know, you've got a
pick-
global... Imagine having a global pick.
You can't pick 3 Cork
And
names.
you're just going with people
You
that
can't
are
even
on your
pick
doorstep.
2, really, can you?
It's 9:34 a.m. OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette Labs. For an effortless finish to your day. We're nearly finished now. I am not... Paul O'Donovan shout was great.
Have you not decided?
I did what I did, but that's got my way now. Right, so I'm going to go for Brazilian Ronaldo.
Okay.
Famously not from Cork.
He's so charismatic, like this guy. Have you seen the Ronaldo documentary?
Yeah, brilliant.
Phenomenon. And he is like surprisingly like amazing English for a guy who doesn't really have any reason to. Jar interviewed him at the Web Summit a few years ago, and I think that interview, a photo of it, is Jar's cover photo on Twitter. And Jar wouldn't be one, as he'd said to you, to like get in there with the people he interviews.
Fanboy.
But he loves them so much. And then if you ever listen to him at all, he just has this kind of lust for life and just wants to have as good a time as possible for the time he's here, and then at the same time achieve as much as he can. So like him as a footballer, him coming back from 98 to 2002, like I could listen to him all night talk about that during dinner. And then the fact that he goes into club ownership, which is such an unusual thing for a player to do, not like coaching, not media work, but I'll own a club instead. So there's these two sides to Ronaldo. So he has this reputation for like, he loves a good time and he's always out and about, but I imagine owning a club is incredibly stressful. So straight away, I could just have a one-on-one with Ronaldo and talk endlessly to him about how amazing he was when he came on the scene so young. That time between 98 and 02. And like one of the attributes that Ronaldo wouldn't necessarily be associated with is his work ethic and ability to come back.
He doesn't
and
want to talk about football. He's out for dinner, Colm.
I would have concern.
No. You talk about that and then you move on to life stuff. And he has this smile about him that suggests like there's a glint in the eye and he's like, whatever you want to talk about, I'm happy to talk
You're
about.
definitely a talking points man as well. You'd nearly actually have them, it's an agenda written.
No, I wouldn't. I'd actually be the complete opposite. And
I'd also be concerned that they wouldn't get a word in edgeways.
Not at all. Why should they have no interest now in
Pot
hearing what I
kettle,
have to
the
say
two
about
lads
things?
here, yeah.
I just want to, I just want to hear from Ronaldo, right? So that's one. The other one I want is Goran Ivanisevic, the 2001 Wimbledon final winner. And he had a great quote the morning of that final. I wouldn't mind putting my racket away if God let me win today. He had lost 3 previous Wimbledon finals, but his post-match speech in Wimbledon after beating Pat Rafter in that final was almost as good as the win itself. He's so naturally funny and again charismatic. And again, I think with Ivanisevic, he's a fascinating career. So that's the backlog conversation, that if you want to fall back on that, you can talk about his career. But again, with him, like Ronaldo, there's something more to him. He has more of an interest in life. From Croatia, tough background, but wants to talk about other things. Big football fan. His last appearance at Wimbledon 2004, he lost to Leighton Hewitt, ripped off his shirt, put on a Croatia jersey, because Croatia were playing England that night of Euro 2004, and then started goading the crowd. You could get up to all sorts of Goran. The thing I liked about these two choices, right, dinner would have finished at 9 or 10.
Would it go on with it?
What you going to do now? Those two boys would be well up for a night
The thing
out.
I liked about my first 2 choices, he's literally just said there.
That, well, yeah, as I realise it. And then the last one, I have a split decision, because I've already had one tennis. I was going to have Monica Seles because of what happened to her and then how brilliant she was, and she's one of my first, I suppose, sporting icons growing up, because my mother was like obsessed with tennis, and so it was always on in the house. And she's a brilliant talker about what happened to her, but also her interest after tennis and what she did. So I was really close to picking her, but I said for the dynamic...
You can't have 2 tennis players, yeah, go on. You can't.
The dynamic, I'm going to go for US golfer Boo Weekley.
Boo Weekley be proud of me there, as G-Max says.
Boo Weekley. He played 2008 Ryder Cup when America won. I think that was the Faldo year. And he hit a great tee shot off the 18 green, and he started riding the club down like a horse, because he's kind of like a cowboy type figure. And he famously has very little interest in golf, but is just very good at it. And every time I hear this guy in a press conference or interview, he doesn't really play anymore, but this is like going back. And again, he's retired, so it's kind of interesting retrospective view on things.
I didn't expect that from you.
And he talks, and he is so fascinating about golf. He's like, I just play it because it pays me well, but really all I want to do is be at home and go fishing. So again, you have the golf, you have the Ryder Cup victory that he was central to, but if you want to get off the sport, you get on to life.
And you can make it a regular dinner. You can have it every 7 days with him as well.
Well, I don't think
tell you could have a dinner with Boo Weekly whenever you want.
Certainly weekly anyway.
whatever you're thinking.
Yeah, monthly maybe. But we could have that, Ronaldo, Goran Ivanisevic, Boo Weekly, where are we off to next? And I think you get great value for money in that night out, because it's not just the dinner. Could be drinks afterwards.
So use of all, I'm embarrassed now because you've taken it so seriously. I should say my actual three, my serious three, is Ronnie O'Sullivan, Ciara McGeehan and Damien Brown.
Ciara McGeehan's actually a good shout.
That's my three, because Ronnie O'Sullivan loves running and athletics, so he'd have great chats with Ciara. And then Damien Brown, we'd all be talking to Damien Brown of across the Atlantic in that boat. So that's my actual, if I'm being serious and honest.
It's very deep conversation.
Damien.
Yeah.
100%. But I love it. Because Ciara and Ronnie would show an interest. And there's a bit of cheek out of Ronnie O'Sullivan as well, so you'd have the bit of back and forth.
3's a harsh number, isn't it?
Tough.
Albie Littlewood says Roddy Collins all the way. It's a very good shout.
Yeah, I don't think you need anybody else if you have Roddy. That's the thing.
Rog was a great pick. I guess we just don't think of Rog because we were lucky enough to chat to him regularly enough.
Well, see, that's the thing, that I had that in my mind as well, but I was also like, I just imagine him and Emma Hayes sitting down together, and I just feel like the conversations about managing people would just be so interesting, and the sort of thing you could join in on slightly and be like,
it's like,
tell me more.
100%. The stories some of these people have. I went for dinner in Vegas with Gene Kilroy, Muhammad Ali's manager, during last summer, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, this man, the stories he was telling, like about meeting Elvis and stuff and crazy stuff. And at one point he gets a phone call during the thing. He's like, "Who's this?" And he eventually materialises when he's off the phone. It was Willie Nelson's daughter, Amy, and Willie was in the background. Willie was in the background, and I was like, "This is insanity."
Class.
You know, but just people who have stories would be a great dinner party guest. Needless to say.
Shame now we've run out of time. Good.
But we'll be back next week.
We gotta go.
What is it called? Friday Fire Pit?
Friday Fire Pit
Fridays.
So we just put a bit more thought into the next.
Rory Larmer said Boo Week Weekly, which is good. After Boo Weekly.
Oh, Boo Weekly.
But I don't want to people myself.
That was a left field
I liked it,
slash odd call.
The
Boo Weekly.
That was bizarre.
Very bizarre. I didn't want to say
honestly,
it, but no,
honestly,
right.
watch the interviews back. Like, you know, honest, I'm not. I'm very proud of that.
No,
choice.
Definitely that'll be
very proud of that.
Jesus, Colm, I did not expect.
Big plan for the weekend.
Listen, look, honestly, your plan sorted.
You could pick any live sports person in the world, and you'll choose Boo Weekly.
Camaraderie.
We leave it there. So thanks a million for coming in, folks. For the Friday Fire Pit, it was an interesting debut for the item, and we'll see where it goes from here. It's gone 22:10 on this Friday morning. What are you saying?
He was mental about
sitting there mumbling away to yourself in the middle of the outro.
He's just a grumpy old man,
isn't he?
Yeah.
I've had a hard week on a lot of different ones. OTBAM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We're going to be back on Monday morning. It'll be Adrian Shane and the fantabulous Gillette Labs performance rankings will have a reaction to the return of the weekend's GEA, the FA Cup, URC, and plenty more as well. Now we're going to leave you with Conor Hourihane, I believe. Enjoy and have a great weekend.
You play Football Manager?
No, I don't. I'm afraid. No, I've got two girls in the house here, and I've got no chance of getting around to that now.
Were you a Football Manager player?
I was back in the day a little bit, yeah, but not for many a year, to be fair. No, if I'm being honest.
Our producer Arthur recently downloaded the new Football Manager, and he decided I'll start out as Derby County, and it turned out Conor Hourihane was his star player. Everything was going along beautifully, and then you got injured, and now he's having that what's real life and what's Football Manager. So if he was, when you came on the line, if he was a bit short with you, it's because he's a little bit pissed off that you've destroyed his Football Manager career, but it didn't really happen like that. Real life Derby County's going really well for you.
Yeah, look, it's going well. I'm really enjoying it. Look, I suppose we're on a nice run at the minute, winning a lot of games, and we're trying to close the gap on the top two, but in terms of just enjoying the season, playing regularly, it's exactly what I wanted, really, coming to the start of the season and why I signed.
So you've won 5 league games in a row, has put you right back in contention for automatic promotion. There's a big FA Cup game coming up against West Ham on Monday night, and you're in a rich vein of scoring form, 3 goals in your last 4 matches. I think the last time you were on was at Swansea. You were in a pretty rich vein of scoring form at that stage as well. The last couple of years before arriving at Derby, and the couple of loan spells when you were at Swansea and then spending a season at Sheffield United, you're now at Derby on a permanent basis. How different is life back at a club, knowing you're there, knowing you're a full-time part of the team? Is there a sense when you're out on loan that you're always sort of looking over your shoulder that you might be called back? Do you buy a house there, or do you commute? How does all that work?
Yeah, look, it's very, very tough, I suppose. It's the side of football and life that people probably don't see as much and aren't kind of maybe tuned into it. Look, I was at Villa for 5 years. It came to a stage in the Premier League where I wasn't playing as much. And me being me, wanted to get out on loan and play regularly again. Look, so I went to Swansea, and then that was during a lockdown. So I went down to Swansea, and there was nothing open or anything like that. I just had my second child, and I was up and down a lot, and it was difficult, even though I really, really enjoyed it. We got to a playoff final. And look, if I'm being honest, if we had won that playoff final, I probably would have stayed permanently, because I got on. I loved the area, loved the manager, Steve Cooper. But look, it didn't happen, and we move on. And then obviously the Sheffield United one came about. Great club, really, really enjoyed it. Probably didn't play as much as I would like, and I was up and down from there again. So the last 18 months before I signed for Derby has been difficult, but you try to make the most of the situation as well.
How are you with that bit that we don't see, with the long commute, having a young child, and I know you got married during the summer, a new wife who, your career, professional footballers have to be selfish, but there's another side that you go home and you're gone for 3-4 nights. When you're back home, you still got to remain a professional and switched on. How are you with getting that balance right?
Yeah, it's really tough. I suppose, look, when I wasn't playing in Aston Villa, and I went down to Swansea, we had one child already, and the second had just come along, and I was like, look, I have to go to Swansea and play. And I look back at it now, and I cringe a little bit and think, God, how selfish were you there? My wife had just had our second child. A month into it was born, and I'm gone to Swansea for 4 nights, 3 nights a week, whatever it may be. And I think that was really, really selfish of you, but that's the life that we live, So it's a difficult one. You try and find the right balance. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't. But
is it hard to play your best football in that sort of scenario where there is there's a young child at home, kids get sick, there's always something happening, you're getting the phone call, your wife, she's probably trying not to lay it on too heavy on you as to exactly what's happening, but you probably should be back there, but you just can't.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, Nathan, it's really difficult. You try and push it all to a side a little bit, and it's right for your career, but at the same time, in the back of your head, you feel like you should be there, and it's a really fine balance, And last year, obviously, Sheffield United, I was doing a similar thing, up and down to Sheffield, and look, since I moved to Villa 5-6 years ago, whatever it is now, we really like the area. We're really happy on where we were living, and we didn't really want to leave, so we wanted to set up a base here. And my oldest child now is going to school here in September in the area, so this is our base now for the near future. And then and then come along, Derby came, and it's kind of 45 minutes, 50 minutes to where we're living, and it was the right move for me really at the time.
Is that something you have to get your head around, that when you're looking, and listen, I'm sure you're going to say now you're very happy at Derby, but there were probably other options in different parts of the country that were there championship offers maybe in different parts of the country?
Yeah, no, there was, and that's being genuinely honest. But look, I'd done 18 months, I'd done 6 months at Swansea, a year at Sheffield United, and I was like, right, I need to settle down here a little bit. Even for myself, it was tough, up and down a lot. Whether my form suffered a little bit possibly last year at Sheffield United, but look, I wasn't in the team a lot anyway. I was kind of in and out, and I was trying to make the most of that when I played. And look, I just wanted to get back to playing regularly and being at a club where I could go and do something and really help the club. Maybe, I know I ended up at Derby, kind of rebuild. It's a really, really good football club. It was on his feet. It found his feet again in the summer, and it was a chance to kind of make a name for myself again and get the club going and be a part of something. And that excited me. And of course, then geographically, that suited me as well. So it taking it all into consideration, that it was bang on, really.
I always got the sense from you a good bit of balance anyways. You were someone who had to work your way up right the way through the ranks, from not getting game time at Sunderland and Ipswich, and restarting at Plymouth in League 2, and working your way up with Barnsley in League 1, and into the Championship, and getting promoted with Aston Villa. That thing of stepping away from Villa and being a Premier League player, and the identity of being a Premier League player, the most famous, the best league in the world. Yeah. Even when you're going out on loan, I know you say you want to play football. Is there a part of you going, Jesus, I like being a Premier League footballer?
Yeah, look, it's amazing to class yourself as a Premier League footballer, and I was fortunate enough to do it for a couple of seasons with Villa. But I just wanted to play, and that's ultimately what I wanted personally. I think some players possibly hold on to that title a little bit too long, and they need to just kind of just go and play. Whereas that's dropping down to the championship, your career passes before you know it. Like you said, you just gone through my journey there, and here I am a couple of days away from my 32nd birthday, and I'm like, well, where's that gone? But I can look at myself wholeheartedly and say I made most of the opportunity every single time to try and go play football, wherever that may be. It's what I wanted to do when I set out as a 12, 13-year-old lad playing regularly as a professional footballer, and I've stayed with that mantle throughout my career, really, which I pride myself on. So I had no problem with kind of dropping that ego and dropping down to the championship at the time, because I knew that, one, it was probably right for my career, and two, I just wanted to play.
And if you're in reflective mode, do you look back and say, I got the most out of my talent?
Yeah, without a doubt, I can definitely come to peace with that. Whenever the day is when I hang up my boots, I made the absolute utmost of my career through my talent, mostly through my mentality, through my work rate, through putting in the hours, dedication, sacrifice, whatever it may be. That's something that I've prided myself on, like I said, that dedication and standards to my career. There's been a lot more talented guys than me over the course of my career who I may have passed out just through that mentality and dedication. So that's something that I look back on and kind of say, good on you for doing that.
That step up when you made it from the Championship to the Premier League with Villa, and you'd had a couple of seasons in the Championship where you were, up there with the very best players in the league. You were a real driving force for Villa. You were scoring a lot of goals, and then it goes up a notch in the position that you play in midfield, where it's such a technical position, and you watch the speed of these Premier League games now, and how little time you have on the ball. Now that you're a couple of years on, and you look back on the performances you had, and it was up in 35 games in the Premier League over those couple of years. How do you reflect on you as a Premier League player?
Look, first of all, with huge pride, to say that I got to that league and played there for, in and out of the Aston Villa team for 2 seasons was just amazing. You look, another pride, I suppose, that I take is that never got relegated. In the couple of seasons I was there, I was fortunate enough to get promoted with such a fantastic club who had big kind of money injections as well. When we got to the Premier League, that was probably maybe a reason why I kind of fluttered down to the Championship after a couple of seasons, because they were spending that much money. It just kind of bypassed me a little bit, and they were going on to the next level. But with immense pride, going from League 2 all the way to the Premier League is not an easy journey, and to say that I've mixed it as best I could at that level is amazing. Some of the games I was trying my best, don't get me wrong, but fell completely out of my depth a little bit, without a doubt.
What was it? What was the bit of your game that maybe you're comfortable with, particularly now in League 1? What are the different parts that actually in the Premier League you thought, even if I get 10% better, it's going to be a bit of a struggle?
Yeah, look, I think when you come up against the Man Cities, the Liverpools, at the time they were the top two. Their physicality, their technical ability, how they move the ball. I remember we played Man City. I started at Centre Park at Villa Park against Man City, and we got beat 6-1. It was an absolute bloodbath. I barely touched the ball, and I genuinely mean that. It was really difficult at times. There was other games, I remember Newcastle, Everton, a couple of times, Crystal Palace, where I had really, really good games and we got results out of. It was a bit of a mixed bag, but an incredible experience to have got there.
The training sessions, I'm sure you've spoken before about Jack Grealish and his brilliance, and we're probably just seeing flourishes of that. Like, do you look at Grealish at Manchester City and think, how is this guy not starting every week? Or is it like when you think of what you saw him doing on the pitch and at the training pitch, even at the level Manchester City are at, are you still surprised that he's not one of the first names on the team sheet?
A little bit. Look, he was that good. There were stages when we got to the Premier League where he was literally taking the mickey out of us in training, and it got to a stage where it was getting a little bit silly. He was that good. Something I've never seen before with the players that I've played with anyway. So I look at it now and I think, like you just said, there was no doubt in my mind that I was saying to people, he'll succeed there. And look, we're seeing flashes of it now, which is great, but it just shows you the level. There's constantly another level at Man City, at the Liverpools, and whatever the level may be. And it's just an incredible level to have seen firsthand. And like I said, I've no doubt still that we'll still see the flashes, and hopefully that flashes become a bit more consistent, and he'll have a successful career at that level as well, because there's no doubt the talent is there, and the ability is absolutely second to none.
Was that all natural ability with him?
Yeah, a lot of it was. I think Dean Smith at Villa got the best out of him. Showed him that love and what exactly he wanted, that freedom. It was just Dean got it right and managed them really, really well, and he just went from strength to strength, really.
And to play in a midfield alongside him, like, is that for you? Keep it simple, just give it a jack.
Yeah, look, when I got promoted from the Championship, I was the sitting midfielder, and I had Jack and John McGinn as my 2-8. So I think it was they were the two main men in there, and I was just trying to do my little bit. Two fantastic players ahead of me. Originally under Steve Bruce previously, I was a number 8. And then we signed John McGinn, and I was like, right, I'm going to have to change my position here a little bit, because them two were going to be the nailed down number 8. So I became that sitter, adapted my game, and that's something that I've done throughout my career, adapted to managers, adapted to styles, so to make sure I was in that team as much as I could. So it was an absolute pleasure to get promoted with them two, and them two playing ahead of me, because they're both terrific players and terrific guys as well.
Yeah, when you have McGinn and Grealish, there's no amount of work you can do in the gym that's getting your glutes to the level of those two.
No chance, no. Physicality is probably not my finest attribute, but when you have the two of them in front of you, then I get away with it a little bit.
Where is your best position? Because at Swansea, I remember you were playing as a number 8 as well for a while, and you were scoring a lot of goals. But quite often when we see you now, particularly with Ireland, it's in that sort of more sitting back, keeping it simple, getting it to other players, for them to be the creative ones. What's the bit where you're happiest and you feel you make the most impact?
Look, I suppose the majority of my caps, to be fair, has been for as a 6. Look, I've really enjoyed playing there. I've probably been a mixture of both. Look, throughout. For some reason, I think in my international career, I've kind of been labelled as a 6, and in my club career, I feel like I've been labelled as an 8. I played a lot as an 8 for, when I played for Sheffield United, when I played for Swansea, when I played for Aston Villa, when I played for Plymouth. When I was at Barnsley, we were more of a 4-4-2, but I was the more the attacking one. I've scored a lot of goals, I feel, in my career. I'm chasing down 100 goals in my career, so that probably speaks where I'd like to do my work, probably higher up the pitch. But look, I suppose I try, like I said, whatever the case may be, I try and adapt. If it's that sitter role, I try and learn it. I try and do my best there. And I've put some decent performances in there, and other performances were not so decent, but that's the same as a number 8 as well. So look, I enjoy doing both, but I've probably been more proactive and productive as a number 8, I suppose, over the course of my club career.
John Giles will be throwing something at the screen right now when we're talking about number 8s, number 6s holding the midfielders. That there's only one type of midfielder. Is that one type of midfielder that he was alongside Billy Bremner 50 years ago for Leeds? Is that type of midfielder gone?
Well, I think now if you can do both of it, if you can be a 6 and an 8 and both jointing together, I think then you become like a Jude Bellingham, and you're one of the best out there. I think you become pigeonholed a little bit, maybe because your strengths are more attacking, or your strengths is a passer or a defensive side. And like I said, I think if you can do all, then you become a top midfielder. If you said to Kevin De Bruyne, sit in there and be a number 6, he probably may struggle, even though to keep the ball for fun. But you know what I'm trying to say. And if you can kind of, like I said, the one out there at the minute who can do everything, and you see people like Roy going on about it all the time, he can do everything: attack, defend, break up play, run forward. Then you've got 100 million price tag over your head. So I think that's why now you get pigeonholed in a certain area, because managers see strengths and weaknesses in every player.
Do you have any relationship with Roy these days?
I don't. No.
That's a long time ago now. It was strange because he brought you from Ipswich to Ipswich from Sunderland.
Yeah, he signed me at Sunderland. He signed me at Ipswich. I met him again along the way with the Ireland international career set up. And look, an incredible man. Someone I still idolise to this day. Feels hugely fortunate that a man of his calibre, who had the career that he had, signed me twice, gave me more caps with Martin along the way in my international career. And look, only thanks I've got to say to Roy, I suppose. because he gave me the opportunity to break through in England. And still, like I said, idolise him to now. Incredible to watch on Sky, and amazing to be around the times that I was around him in my footballing career, without a doubt.
What do you think he made of you when you were 18 or 19?
I just thought he probably thought he wanted to give an opportunity to a fella from Cork first and foremost. I think, let's be honest.
Did you feel that at the time?
I think I think when I was at Sunderland, especially, and Ipswich, there was that little bit of a. I think you remember there was Shane O'Connor from Cork as well. Lads, that he felt like, Cork lad, I'll keep an extra eye on you. I'll make sure you're okay. And he definitely did that with me, without a doubt. Like I said, watching him, and I used to go over to Old Trafford when I was younger. My dad was a United fan, and to watch Roy, and then he signed me a couple of times. It was just fairy tale stuff, really, and nothing but good things to say.
Myler likes to believe he's his favourite Cork footballer.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.